A young woman from Boston steps off a train into the wild Montana territory of 1876, expecting to meet the man who promised to marry her. But he's gone, vanished without a trace, leaving her stranded in a violent mining town with no money and no shelter. As darkness falls and danger closes in, Evelyn Hart faces a brutal truth. Survival here demands more than hope. It demands strength she's never had to find before. Follow her extraordinary journey to the very end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The train lurched to a stop with a screech of metal that set Evelyn's teeth on edge. Through the smudged window, she could see the station, if you could call it that. A warped wooden platform, a crooked sign that read Silver Ridge, and beyond it, a collection of buildings that looked like they'd been thrown together by men in a hurry to get drunk. This was Montana territory. This was where her new life was supposed to begin. Evelyn smoothed her traveling dress, aware of how ridiculous the Boston tailoring must look out here. The fabric was already coated in a fine layer of dust from 3 days on the rails. Her fingers trembled slightly as she gathered her 2 cases, everything she owned in the world, which wasn't much to begin with. The other passengers pushed past her, eager to escape the cramped car. She caught fragments of conversation, rough voices discussing her prices and claim disputes. None of them looked at her twice. She stepped down onto the platform, cases in hand, and the wind hit her like a slap. It carried the smell of wood smoke, horse manure, and something else, something sharp and metallic she couldn't identify. The sun was already sinking toward the jagged mountains in the west, painting the sky in shades of copper and rust. Evelyn scanned the platform for Thomas. Thomas Brennan, the man who'd written her such careful letters over the past 8 months. The man who'd described this territory as rough but promising, who'd sent her a tintype photograph of himself standing outside what he'd called our future home. The man who'd proposed marriage in his 5th letter and promised to meet her train. The platform emptied. The train hissed and groaned behind her, preparing for the return journey east. Still no Thomas. "Miss, you waiting for someone?" She turned to find the station clerk, an older man with a tobacco-stained beard, watching her from the doorway of the tiny office. "Yes, I'm supposed to meet Thomas Brennan. Do you know him?" Something flickered across the clerk's face. Not recognition. Something worse. "Brennan, you said?" "Yes. Thomas Brennan. He works a claim about 5 miles north of town. He was supposed to meet me here." Her voice sounded thin in the vast Montana air. The clerk scratched his beard. "How long you been corresponding with this fellow?" 8 months. "Why? Do you know where I can find him?" "Miss, I've been running this station for 3 years. Know just about every prospector and rancher within 20 miles. He paused, and in that pause, Evelyn felt something crack open inside her chest. "Ain't never heard of no Thomas Brennan." The cases slipped from her hands and hit the platform with a thud. "That's not possible. He wrote me. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork. He described this town, the mountains, his claim. What'd he look like? In that picture he sent?" Evelyn fumbled in her reticule, pulled out the tintype. Her hands were shaking now, not slightly, but violently. The clerk took it, held it up to the fading light, and his expression confirmed what she already knew, deep in her bones, was true. "That ain't nobody I recognize. And that building behind him, that ain't from around here neither." The platform seemed to tilt beneath her feet. 8 months. 8 months of letters, of planning, of hoping. She'd sold what little jewelry her mother had left her to afford the train fare. She'd left her position at the textile mill, ignored her landlady's warnings, burned every bridge back to Boston because Thomas had promised her something better. "Maybe he's just delayed," she heard herself say. "Maybe he's coming tomorrow." The clerk handed back the tintype. His eyes held something like pity, which was somehow worse than contempt would have been. "Miss, I don't know who you been writing to, but I'd wager good money he ain't in Montana. Probably ain't even his real name. You got people you can wire? Money for a ticket back east?" Evelyn looked down at her reticule. Inside was $1.37. The return fare to Boston was $63. "I see," the clerk said quietly. "Well, there's a boarding house on Main Street. Mrs. Talbot runs it. She might have a room if you got something to trade for it." "I have money," Evelyn said, though they both knew it wouldn't last a week. "Sure you do. But miss, I'm going to tell you straight, because somebody ought to. Silver Ridge ain't a kind town. It ain't a safe town for a woman alone. You understand what I'm saying? She understood. She'd read the newspaper accounts back in Boston, the stories about frontier towns where law was a suggestion and women were commodities. She'd dismissed them as Eastern exaggeration. Standing here now, watching the last light drain from the sky and hearing the first shouts and gunshots starting up from the saloons along Main Street, she understood she'd been a fool. "The boarding house," she said. "Which direction?" He pointed down the rutted dirt road that apparently constituted the main thoroughfare. 3 blocks down, north side. Tell Mrs. Talbot that Hank sent you. She's decent enough, far as it goes. Evelyn picked up her cases. They felt heavier than they had 5 minutes ago. Thank you. She walked down Main Street as the lamps began to flicker on in the saloons and gambling halls. Silver Ridge was exactly what it appeared to be, a place built on greed and violence, where buildings leaned against each other like drunks, and the boardwalks were rotted through in places. Men stood in doorways, watching her pass. Their eyes tracked her progress with an interest that made her skin crawl. She kept her chin up, her pace steady. The cases banged against her legs with every step. A man stumbled out of a saloon directly into her path. He reeked of whiskey and hadn't shaved in weeks. "Well, look what we got here," he slurred. "You lost, darlin'." "Excuse me." Evelyn tried to step around him. He blocked her way, grinning. Don't be unfriendly. You new in town? Looking for work? Rosie's place is always hiring girls." "I'm not interested. Please move." Feisty. I like feisty. A hand clamped down on the drunk's shoulder, hard enough to make him yelp. Evelyn looked up to find another man standing there, tall, maybe 30, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes that had seen too much. He wore work clothes, dust-covered and sweat-stained, and there was a knife on his belt that wasn't for decoration. "She said move," the stranger said quietly. The drunk tried to shake him off. "This ain't your concern, Creed." The stranger's grip tightened. "It is now." For a moment, Evelyn thought there would be a fight. The drunk's hand moved toward his own belt. But something in the stranger's eyes made him reconsider. He spat in the dirt and stumbled back toward the saloon, muttering curses. The stranger released him and turned to Evelyn. Up close, she could see the details. A scar above his left eyebrow, calluses on his hands, a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so hard. "You all right?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." He glanced at her cases, her dress, the way she was standing like she expected the ground to open up beneath her. "You just get off the train? Is it that obvious?" "Little bit." He paused. "You meeting someone or—" "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "No, I'm not meeting anyone. I'm going to Mrs. Talbot's boarding house." "That's the other direction." Evelyn looked behind her. In her panic, she'd walked right past it. "Of course it is," she said quietly. The stranger picked up her cases before she could protest. "Come on, I'll walk you back." "That's not necessary." "Yeah, it is." They walked in silence. Evelyn was too tired, too humiliated to argue. Around them, Silver Ridge came fully alive in the darkness. Piano music spilling from the saloons, shouts and laughter, and the occasional crack of gunfire. The stranger navigated it all without seeming to notice, and the few men who looked their way quickly looked elsewhere. Mrs. Talbot's boarding house was a narrow 2-story building wedged between a blacksmith shop and a dry goods store. Light glowed in the downstairs windows. The stranger set down her cases and knocked. A moment later, the door opened to reveal a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that could probably spot a lie at 50 paces. "Logan Creed," she said. "What trouble are you bringing to my door?" "No trouble, Mrs. Talbot. Got a lady here looking for a room." Mrs. Talbot looked Evelyn up and down, taking in the expensive dress, the quality cases, the bone-deep exhaustion. "You running from something, girl?" "No, ma'am. I came here to—" Evelyn's voice caught. "I was supposed to meet someone. He's not here." "They usually aren't." Mrs. Talbot sighed. "Well, come in before the whole street gets an eyeful. You too, Logan. I suppose you'll want coffee." The boarding house interior was clean and plain, furnished with cast-offs but maintained with obvious care. Mrs. Talbot led them to a small parlor and disappeared into what must have been the kitchen. Logan remained standing. "I should go." "Wait," Evelyn said. "I didn't thank you properly. For helping me." "No need." There is, actually. She met his eyes. Why did you help me? You don't know me. He was quiet for a moment. Let's just say I recognize trouble when I see it. Am I in trouble? You're in Silver Ridge alone with $1 to your name and no place to go. Yeah, I'd say you're in trouble. Evelyn blinked. How did you? Heard you talking to Hank at the station. Town's small. Word travels. He moved toward the door. Mrs. Talbot's decent. She'll give you a fair shake, but this town won't. Whatever brought you here, whatever you're running from or running to, my advice is to leave on the next train east. I can't afford it. Then find a way. He left before she could respond. Mrs. Talbot returned with coffee and a hard biscuit that Evelyn ate without tasting. That man who just left, Evelyn said. Mr. Creed. Who is he? Logan Creed's got a ranch about 10 miles north, keeps to himself mostly, comes to town for supplies. Lost his wife 2 years back to fever. Mrs. Talbot poured herself coffee. He's right, you know. Girl like you doesn't belong in Silver Ridge. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Might not be a good one, but it's there. She studied Evelyn over the rim of her cup. So, who was this fellow who was supposed to meet you? Thomas Brennan, at least that's the name he used. Brennan. Mrs. Talbot's mouth tightened. I've heard that name. Not attached to a real person, mind you. Heard it attached to a scheme. Evelyn set down her cup carefully. What kind of scheme? The kind where a man back east writes letters to lonely women, promises them marriage and a new life, gets them to send money or valuables, then disappears. She paused. How much did you send him? Nothing. He never asked for money, just asked me to come. And you did? It wasn't a question. Evelyn nodded, feeling the full weight of her stupidity settle onto her shoulders. He sent me letters, she said quietly. Beautiful letters about building something real out here. About wanting a partner, not just a wife. I thought... She stopped. It didn't matter what she'd thought. You thought you'd found something better than a textile mill in Boston, Mrs. Talbot finished. Can't fault you for that. But girl, you need to understand something. Men out here, a lot of them, they're running from something too. And a man who's running will say anything to feel less alone. So what am I supposed to do? That depends. You got skills? Can you cook, clean, sew? I can sew. I worked in a mill for 3 years. Not much call for mill work here, but sewing, that could work. Women in town, the respectable ones, they're always needing dresses altered, things mended. And the men, they tear through clothes like paper. She considered, I could put you to work here. Room and board in exchange for help around the house, laundry, mending. Won't pay much extra, but it'd keep you fed. It was more than Evelyn had any right to expect. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I run a decent house, which means no entertaining men in your room, no drinking, church on Sunday. You break those rules, you're out. Understood? Yes, ma'am. Good. You look dead on your feet. I'll show you to your room. The room was tiny, barely large enough for a narrow bed and a washstand, but it was clean and the door had a lock. Evelyn locked it behind her, stripped off her traveling dress, and collapsed onto the bed. She didn't cry. She'd cried enough on the train when hope was still possible. Now there was nothing left but the hard work of survival. The next morning, Evelyn woke to the sound of roosters and hammering. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtain. For a moment she forgot where she was. Expected to see her cramped room at Mrs. Henderson's boarding house in Boston, the familiar water stains on the ceiling. Then reality crashed back. She dressed in her second-best dress, the traveling one was too dusty to wear, and made her way downstairs. Mrs. Talbot was already in the kitchen, frying eggs and bacon. There's coffee on the stove, she said without turning around. You drink it black? Yes, ma'am. Good. Sugar's expensive out here. She slid eggs onto 2 plates. Eat up. I'm putting you to work after breakfast. The work was endless. Evelyn scrubbed floors, hauled water, changed linens for the 3 other boarders, miners who worked odd hours and tracked in enough dirt to fill a wagon. Her hands, soft from mill work, blistered and bled. Her back ached. By nightfall, she was so tired she could barely climb the stairs. It went on like that for days. Wake, work, collapse. Mrs. Talbot was fair but demanding, and Evelyn was grateful for it. The exhaustion left no room for thought, for regret, for the gnawing fear of what would happen when winter came. On the fourth day, as Evelyn was hanging laundry in the narrow yard behind the boarding house, she heard voices from the next building over, the blacksmith shop. "Telling you, she's a fool to stay here. Pretty thing like that, alone? It's asking for trouble. Maybe she likes trouble." Laughter. Rough and knowing. Evelyn kept hanging laundry, her hands steady on the clothespins even as her heart hammered. She'd heard worse in the mill, men who thought women were deaf or didn't matter. She knew how to make herself invisible. But Silver Ridge wasn't a mill. Here, there was no foreman to report to, no threat of dismissal to keep the worst impulses in check. That evening, Mrs. Talbot handed her a bundle of mending. Mrs. Crawford from the church brought these by. Her husband's shirts. If you do good work, she'll send more. Evelyn examined the shirts. The fabric was good quality, the stitching careful. She could work with this. She spent the evening repairing seams and replacing buttons, her fingers finding the rhythm they'd known at the mill. It was soothing, familiar. By the time she finished, the house had gone quiet. The other boarders were either asleep or out. She was returning the mended shirts to the basket when she heard the knock, sharp, insistent. Mrs. Talbot appeared from her own room, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. She opened the door a crack. "Logan Creed, it's past 9 o'clock. "I know. I need to talk to her." Evelyn's stomach dropped. She moved to the top of the stairs. Mrs. Talbot glanced back at her, then at Logan. "This better be important." "It is." Mrs. Talbot stepped aside. Logan entered, hat in hand, and looked up at Evelyn. "We need to talk," he said, "about Thomas Brennan." Evelyn descended the stairs slowly. "You found him?" "No, but I found out who he was." Logan's face was grim. "And you need to hear this now, tonight, because come morning, half the town's going to know, and it'll be worse." Mrs. Talbot gestured toward the parlor. They sat, the three of them, in the lamplight. Logan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I did some asking around. Sent a wire to a friend in Helena who knows the territory. Thomas Brennan is a name that's been used at least a dozen times in the past 5 years. Different men, same scheme. They find women back east, usually working women with no family, promise them marriage, get them to come west. Sometimes they take money. Sometimes they just collect them." "Collect them," Evelyn repeated numbly. "Sell them to brothels, mining camps, places where women are scarce and questions aren't asked." The room tilted. Evelyn gripped the arm of her chair. "But he didn't ask me for money. He just told me to come." "Did he suggest a particular route, a particular train?" Evelyn thought back to the letters. "He said to take the Northern Pacific to Silver Ridge. He was very specific about it. Because someone was supposed to meet you here, not to marry you, to take you somewhere else." Mrs. Talbot's face had gone white. "You're saying she was being sold." "I'm saying someone paid good money to have her delivered." Logan looked at Evelyn. "The only reason you're sitting here now instead of on your way to some camp is because whoever was supposed to collect you isn't here. Maybe they got arrested. Maybe they're dead. I don't know. But they could still show up." Evelyn couldn't breathe. The room, the furniture, Logan's face. Everything seemed far away and too close at once. "So what do I do?" she whispered. "You leave. Tomorrow. I'll front you the money for a ticket to Helena. From there you can wire someone back east, get money for the rest of the journey." "I can't pay you back." "I don't want you to pay me back. I want you gone before whoever's looking for you figures out you're still here." It made sense. It was the smart thing to do. But Evelyn heard herself say, "I don't have anyone back east." Logan frowned. "Family? Friends? I had a landlady who tolerated me because I paid on time. I had a foreman at the mill who'd remember my name if pressed. That's it." She looked at him directly. "If I go back to Boston, I'll end up in the same room, the same mill, the same life I left. The only difference is now I'll know exactly how stupid I was to hope for something different." Better stupid and alive than smart and dead. Is it? The question hung in the air. Mrs. Talbot stood, moved to the window, and stared out at the dark street. "There might be another option," she said slowly. Logan shook his head. "Mrs. Talbot, hear me out." She turned back to them. "My sister runs a boarding house in Bannock. It's smaller than Silver Ridge, quieter. More families, fewer prospectors. She's been asking for help, someone she can trust. If Evelyn went there, stayed out of sight for a while. Bannock's 2 days' ride from here, Logan said. You think whoever's looking for her won't check there? I think if she changes her name and keeps her head down, she's got a chance. Better than sending her back east with no money and no prospects. Logan looked at Evelyn. It's your choice, but you need to make it now. Evelyn thought about Boston. The narrow streets, the factory smoke, the landlady's suspicious eyes. She thought about the mill, the endless repetition, the certain knowledge that nothing would ever change. Then she thought about the letters Thomas Brennan had sent. Not the lies, but what she'd felt reading them. The possibility of something else, something more. She'd been a fool to trust those letters, but had she been a fool to want what they promised? I'll go to Bannock, she said. Mrs. Talbot nodded. I'll write to my sister tonight. Logan, can you take her? I can get her there, but she'll need a new name, a story that holds. Evelyn Hart is too distinctive anyway, Mrs. Talbot said. We'll call her Emma Harris. You're a widow, Emma. Your husband died in a mining accident, and you're coming to work for my sister. Keep it simple. Emma. Evelyn tried the name in her mind. It felt like putting on someone else's clothes. When do we leave? She asked. Tomorrow before dawn, Logan said. Pack light. Wear something you can ride in. I don't have anything like that, Mrs. Talbot sighed. I'll find you something. Lord knows I've collected enough cast-offs over the years. Logan stood. Tomorrow then, 4 a.m. Don't be late. He left, and Evelyn sat in the parlor listening to Mrs. Talbot rummage through trunks upstairs. Outside, Silver Ridge went about its nightly business, the saloons, the gambling, the violence that lurked just beneath the surface. She was leaving, running, really, though she didn't want to call it that. But what choice did she have? Stay and risk being found by men who'd bought her like livestock? Return east to a life that had never wanted her anyway? At least in Bannock, she'd have a chance. A slim one, maybe, but a chance nonetheless. Mrs. Talbot returned with an armful of clothes, simple dresses, a wool coat, sturdy boots that were only slightly too large. Try these on, she said. And Emma? This is important. When you get to Bannock, you keep your mouth shut about all this. My sister doesn't need to know the details, and neither does anyone else. You're a widow looking for work. That's the only story. I understand. I hope you do. Mrs. Talbot's expression softened slightly. You're not the first woman to come west on a promise that turned out to be a lie. Won't be the last either, but you got a second chance here. Don't waste it. Evelyn nodded. She carried the clothes upstairs and tried them on. The dress was plain brown cotton, worn but clean. The boots pinched her toes. The coat smelled like mothballs. She looked at herself in the small mirror above the washstand. Already she looked different, harder, less like the girl who'd stepped off the train 4 days ago. That girl had believed in letters and promises. This woman knew better. She lay down on the narrow bed but didn't sleep. Outside, the town noise gradually faded. Somewhere a dog barked. A wagon rolled past. At 4 a.m., she was already dressed and waiting by the door when Logan knocked. He had a horse for her, a bay mare with patient eyes. Mrs. Talbot pressed a bundle of food into her hands and a small purse with $3 inside. For emergencies, she said. And Emma, don't come back here. Whatever happens, don't come back. Evelyn. Emma nodded. She climbed onto the horse with Logan's help, settling awkwardly into the saddle. She'd never ridden before. Just hold on, Logan said. The horse knows what to do. They rode out as dawn was breaking, the sky turning from black to gray to pale gold. Silver Ridge fell away behind them, and with it, the last remnants of the life Evelyn Hart had planned. Ahead lay Bannock, a new name, a new story. And beside her, silent and watchful, rode a stranger who'd saved her for reasons she didn't understand. She didn't look back. The first hour of riding was misery. Emma's thighs screamed in protest, her back ached, and the saddle felt like it was made of iron. She gripped the pommel with white knuckles, trying to find some rhythm with the horse's movement and failing completely. Logan rode ahead, silent, his posture easy in the saddle. He didn't look back to check on her, didn't offer encouragement or advice. Just kept moving north, away from Silver Ridge, into territory that grew wilder with every mile. The sun climbed higher. The landscape shifted from scrub brush to rolling hills dotted with pine. In the distance, mountains rose like broken teeth against the sky. Emma had never seen anything so big, so indifferent to human presence. Boston had buildings, streets, boundaries. This land had none of that. It simply existed, vast and uncaring. Around mid-morning, Logan finally reined in his horse near a creek. He dismounted and went to the water without a word. Emma slid off her mare and nearly collapsed when her feet hit the ground. Her legs felt like jelly. "Drink," Logan said, not looking at her. "We won't stop again for a while." Emma knelt by the creek and cupped her hands in the water. It was so cold it made her teeth ache, but she drank anyway. Her stomach growled, reminding her she'd barely eaten before they left. Logan pulled out a piece of jerky from his saddlebag and tossed it to her. She caught it awkwardly. "Thank you." He grunted and ate his own piece in silence. The creek burbled over stones. A bird called from somewhere in the trees. The quiet was oppressive in a way city noise had never been. "How much farther?" Emma asked. "We'll make camp tonight, reach Bannack by tomorrow afternoon." "Camp? You thought we'd find a hotel out here?" There might have been amusement in his voice, but his face showed nothing. Emma looked around at the empty wilderness. "I've never slept outside before." "You'll learn." She wanted to ask more. Where would they sleep? What about animals? What if someone found them? But something in Logan's posture told her the conversation was over. He stood, went to his horse, and mounted up. Emma forced herself back onto the mare, biting back a whimper as her abused muscles protested. They rode on. The afternoon dragged into evening. The landscape grew rougher, the trail, if it could be called that, harder to follow. Emma's whole body throbbed with pain. She focused on the back of Logan's head, using it as a fixed point to keep herself upright. When the sun finally touched the western peaks, Logan turned off what little path they'd been following and led them into a clearing surrounded by pines. A circle of stones marked an old fire pit. "This'll do," he said, dismounting. Emma slid off her horse and stumbled. Logan caught her arm, steadying her. "Easy." "I'm fine," she said, though she wasn't. Her legs trembled. Her hands were blistered from gripping the reins. "You did better than I expected," Logan said, which might have been the first compliment he'd paid her. He released her arm and started unsaddling his horse. Emma watched, trying to understand what he was doing so she could copy it with her own mare. The leather straps, the buckles, it all looked complicated. "Here." Logan appeared beside her. "I'll show you once. Pay attention." He walked her through it, his hands quick and efficient. The saddle came off, then the bridle. He showed her how to check the horse's hooves, how to tie her so she could graze but not wander off. "Your turn tomorrow," he said. "All right." Logan built a fire while Emma stood uselessly nearby, too tired and sore to know how to help. When the flames caught, he set a battered coffee pot in the coals and unwrapped more jerky and some hardtack from his pack. "Supper," he said, handing her a share. They ate in silence. The jerky was tough and salty. The hardtack was like chewing on leather. Emma forced it down anyway, washing it with bitter coffee that burned her tongue. Night fell fast in the mountains. One moment there was light, the next there wasn't. The fire became the center of the world, a small circle of warmth against the pressing dark. Beyond it, Emma could hear things moving, rustling, snapping twigs, sounds she couldn't identify. "What's out there?" she asked. "Deer, maybe elk. Nothing that'll bother us if we don't bother it." "What about bears?" "They're out there too." Logan poured himself more coffee. "But the fire will keep them off." Emma pulled her borrowed coat tighter. She'd never been afraid of the dark before. Not really. In Boston, there were always street lamps, windows glowing with lamplight, the sound of other people nearby. Here, the darkness was complete, and the silence was broken only by the fire's crackle and those unidentifiable sounds from the woods. "You should sleep," Logan said. "I'll take first watch." "Watch for what?" "Whatever needs watching for." He unrolled 2 bedrolls from his pack and tossed one to her. It landed at her feet, a thin blanket and an oilcloth to keep the ground damp off. "That's it?" Emma asked. "What'd you expect? A feather bed?" She spread the bedroll near the fire and lay down fully dressed. The ground was hard and cold despite the oilcloth. Every rock seemed to find a tender spot on her body. She closed her eyes, certain she'd never sleep. She woke to Logan shaking her shoulder. The fire had burned down to embers and the sky was turning gray. Time to move. Emma sat up, groaning. Every muscle in her body had stiffened during the night. She felt like she'd been beaten. Logan was already saddling the horses. Emma forced herself up and tried to help, fumbling with the straps until Logan took over with barely concealed impatience. They ate a cold breakfast of more hardtack and rode out as the sun rose. The second day was worse than the first. Emma's body, already pushed past its limits, now actively rebelled. The inside of her thighs were raw and blistered. Her hands bled where the rains had worn through her soft skin. She clenched her jaw and said nothing, refusing to complain, refusing to ask Logan to slow down. Around noon, they crested a ridge and Logan pulled up short. Emma drew alongside him and looked down into the valley below. Bannock spread out beneath them, bigger than Silver Ridge, but not by much. A main street, maybe 24 buildings, and beyond them a scattering of tents and rough cabins. Grasshopper Creek wound through it, glinting in the sunlight. "That's it," Logan said. It looked like every other frontier town Emma had seen, temporary, thrown together, ready to be abandoned the moment the gold ran out. But it was also a place where no one knew her name, her story, or what she'd run from. "Mrs. Talbot's sister lives at the north end," Logan continued. "White house with a green door. Her name's Judith Coleman. You tell her you're Emma Harris, that her sister sent you. She'll know what that means." "You're not coming with me?" "No, I got business elsewhere." He looked at her directly for the first time that day. "You'll be all right. Judith's tough but fair. Do what she says, keep your head down, you'll get through this. And if the men looking for me find out I'm here, then you run again. But they won't if you're smart." He shifted in his saddle. "One more thing. Don't tell anyone where you came from or why. Not even Judith. The less people know, the safer you are." Emma nodded. The advice made sense, even if it meant lying to everyone she met. They rode down into Bannock together. The town was quieter than Silver Ridge, the pace slower. Women walked the boardwalks in groups, their dresses clean if not fancy. Children played in the street. It felt almost civilized. Logan led her to a white house at the north end, exactly as he'd described. The green door looked freshly painted. "This is it," he said. Emma dismounted, wincing as her feet hit the ground. Logan handed down her small bag of belongings. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. I know you didn't have to—" "No, I didn't," he cut her off. "But I did anyway, so make it count." Before she could respond, he turned his horse and rode back down the street. Emma watched him go, this stranger who'd saved her life twice now and asked for nothing in return. She didn't even know why he'd done it. The green door opened and a woman stepped out. She was older than Mrs. Talbot, maybe 60, with iron gray hair and a face weathered by sun and wind. She looked Emma up and down with sharp eyes. "You're the girl my sister wrote about." "Yes, ma'am. Emma Harris. Judith Coleman." She didn't offer her hand. "You know anything about running a boarding house?" "I've been helping your sister for the past week. Cleaning, laundry, mending. Can you cook?" "Some. Some won't cut it here. I got 8 boarders and they expect 3 meals a day." Judith paused. "But I suppose you'll learn. Bring your bag inside." The house was smaller than Mrs. Talbot's, but just as clean. Judith led Emma through a parlor and dining room into a kitchen that smelled like bread and coffee. "You'll sleep in the back room off the kitchen," Judith said. "It's small, but it's private. Meals are at 6, noon, and 6. You'll help with all of them. Laundry on Monday, mending when there's time, floors twice a week, church on Sunday, no exceptions. You understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Your room's through there. Get settled, then come back and help with supper." Emma's room was barely bigger than a closet, with space for a narrow bed and a trunk and nothing else. But it had a window that looked out on the mountains, and the bed had a real mattress stuffed with straw. After 2 nights on the ground, it looked like luxury. She unpacked her few belongings, 2 dresses, a nightgown, the small purse from Mrs. Talbot, the letters from Thomas Brennan that she should have burned but hadn't. She shoved them to the bottom of the trunk. When she returned to the kitchen, Judith was peeling potatoes at a pace that suggested long practice. "You know how to make biscuits?" Judith asked. "No, ma'am." "Then watch." Emma watched as Judith mixed flour, lard, and buttermilk into a dough, handling it quickly and lightly. Her movements were efficient, no wasted motion. "Now you try." Emma's first attempt produced biscuits that were hard as rocks. Her second batch was better, but still nothing like Judith's. By the third try, Judith nodded grudgingly. You'll get there. Keep practicing. The boarders started arriving for supper around 6. They were a mixed group, 2 storekeepers, a teacher, a surveyor, 3 miners, and a clerk from the assay office. All men. They looked at Emma with curiosity, but not the aggressive interest she'd faced in Silver Ridge. This is Emma Harris, Judith announced. She's helping me run the house. You'll treat her with respect or you'll find other lodging. Clear? A chorus of yes, ma'am followed. The men ate quickly and efficiently, complimenting the food with genuine enthusiasm. Emma served and cleared plates, her feet aching, her hands still raw from the ride. After supper, Judith taught her how to wash dishes properly. Hot water, soap, rinse in clean water, dry immediately. You're slow, Judith observed, but you're careful. That's worth something. It was nearly 9 by the time they finished. Emma collapsed into her small bed, too tired to even undress properly. Sleep took her immediately. The days that followed blurred together into a rhythm of work. Wake before dawn, help Judith with breakfast, clean the dining room and parlor, start the laundry or mending, help with the noon meal, more cleaning, help with supper, dishes, fall into bed exhausted. Emma's hands toughened, her back stopped aching. She learned to make biscuits that didn't resemble stones to judge when the stew needed more salt, to iron a shirt without scorching it. Judith was exacting, but not cruel. When Emma made mistakes, and she made plenty, Judith corrected her sharply but didn't dwell on it. There was too much work to waste time on recrimination. The boarders treated Emma with polite distance. They said good morning, thanked her for meals, and otherwise left her alone. It was exactly what she needed. But 2 weeks into her new life, one of the miners didn't come down for breakfast. Judith sent Emma up to check on him. She knocked on his door. Mr. Peterson, breakfast is ready. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Emma opened the door a crack. Mr. Peterson? He was lying on the bed, his face pale and slicked with sweat. When he turned his head to look at her, his eyes were unfocused. Can't get up, he mumbled. Feel wrong. Emma went back downstairs quickly. Something's wrong with Mr. Peterson. Judith was there in seconds. She took one look at the man and sent Emma for the doctor. The doctor's office was 3 blocks down. Emma ran, her heart pounding. She burst through the door to find a gray-haired man reading a medical journal. Dr. Marsh, Judith Coleman needs you. One of her boarders is sick. He grabbed his bag without asking questions and followed her back to the boarding house. By the time they arrived, Peterson was shaking with chills despite the warm room. Dr. Marsh examined him, asked questions, checked his pulse and temperature. Influenza, he said finally. Bad case. He needs to stay in bed, plenty of fluids, and we watch for pneumonia. It could go either way. Judith's mouth tightened. The other boarders? Could already be exposed. Keep an eye on them. Anyone shows symptoms, isolate them immediately. For the next week, the boarding house became a sick room. Peterson grew worse before he started to improve. His fever spiking so high, he became delirious. Emma and Judith took turns sitting with him, forcing water down his throat, changing his sweat-soaked sheets. 2 other boarders came down with it, though their cases were milder. Emma ran herself ragged, cooking, cleaning, nursing, barely sleeping. She lost track of days. Everything became a fog of exhaustion and worry. Judith never complained, never slowed down. She was 70 if she was a day, but she worked like a woman half her age. Emma tried to match her pace and failed. Go to bed, Judith ordered one night when she found Emma falling asleep over the dishes. You're no good to anyone dead on your feet. There's still work. I'll handle it. Go. Emma went, too tired to argue. She woke 8 hours later to find Judith already up, breakfast half prepared. Mr. Peterson's fever broke, Judith said. He'll live. Emma felt something unclench in her chest. That's good. It is. Judith handed her a bowl of oatmeal. Eat. Then we've got a mountain of laundry to get through. The crisis passed. Peterson recovered slowly. The other 2 boarders bounced back faster. Life returned to its normal rhythm. But something had shifted. The boarders looked at Emma differently now, not with curiosity or distance, but with a kind of grudging respect. She'd proven herself useful in a crisis. In a place like Bannock, that mattered. One evening after supper, as Emma was clearing plates, the teacher, a young man named William Foster, lingered at the table. Miss Harris, he said. "I wanted to thank you for taking care of us when we were sick. I was just doing what needed doing." Still, not everyone would have. He smiled, awkward but genuine. "If you ever need anything, you just let me know." Emma nodded, uncomfortable with the attention. She finished clearing and escaped to the kitchen. Judith was washing pots, her hands red from the hot water. "William's sweet on you." "He's just being polite." "No, he's sweet on you. I know the signs." Judith scrubbed at a stubborn stain. "You interested?" "No." "Good. He's a nice enough boy, but you don't need that complication right now." Emma picked up a towel and started drying. "Can I ask you something?" "Depends on what it is." "Your sister, she told you about me, didn't she? About why I came west?" Judith was silent for a moment. "She told me you needed a fresh start. That's all I needed to know." "So you don't know the whole story?" "Don't want to know it. Everyone out here is running from something or towards something. Sometimes both. What matters is what you do now, not what happened before." It was the closest thing to absolution Emma had received since stepping off that train in Silver Ridge. She held on to it like a lifeline. Spring moved towards summer. Bannack warmed up, the creek ran high with snowmelt, and the prospectors flooded back into the hills with renewed energy. The boarding house stayed full. Emma's days remained long and hard, but she didn't mind. The work gave her purpose, kept her mind occupied, left no room for dwelling on what she'd lost or what might have been. She was hanging laundry in the yard one afternoon when a rider approached the house. Emma glanced up and felt her heart stop. It was Logan Creed. He looked the same, dust-covered, weather-beaten, carrying himself with that same coiled readiness. He dismounted and tied his horse to the rail. Emma set down the laundry basket and walked toward him, suddenly aware of how she must look. Hair escaping its bun, dress wet from washing, hands chapped and red. "Mr. Creed." "Miss Harris, son." He touched the brim of his hat. "I was passing through. Thought I'd check in, see how you're settling." "I'm fine. Mrs. Coleman has been very kind." "Good." He paused. "Any trouble? Anyone asking questions about you?" "No, nothing." "That's good too." Another pause. "You look different." Emma wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an observation. "It's been almost 2 months." "Yeah." Logan looked toward the house. "Mrs. Coleman around?" "She's inside. Would you like me to get her?" "No, I'll find her. Just wanted to make sure you were all right." He started toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Emma, that is your name now, right?" "Yes." "You did good. Coming here, starting over. That takes guts." Before Emma could respond, he went inside. She stood in the yard holding a wet sheet, feeling oddly unbalanced. Logan Creed had ridden out of his way to check on her. A man she barely knew, who owed her nothing, had taken time from whatever business he had to make sure she was safe. She didn't know what to do with that. Inside, she could hear voices. Logan's low rumble, Judith's sharper tones. They talked for maybe 10 minutes. Then Logan emerged, nodded to Emma, mounted his horse, and rode off without another word. Judith appeared in the doorway. "That man's got more honor than sense." "What did he want?" "To know if you were managing. To ask if anyone had been sniffing around looking for a woman matching your description." Judith crossed her arms. "He also paid your room and board for the next 3 months." "He what?" "Said he wanted to make sure you had time to get on your feet without worrying about money. I told him you were earning your keep, but he insisted." Emma felt something twist in her chest. Why would he do that? Because he's Logan Creed and he does what he thinks is right, even when it's inconvenient. Judith's expression softened slightly. "Don't go getting any ideas about him, though. He's not looking for a wife. Lost his 2 years back and he's still mourning. I wasn't good, because you've got enough to deal with without adding a complicated man to the mix." Judith went back inside, leaving Emma alone with her thoughts. She finished hanging the laundry, her mind churning. Logan Creed was a puzzle she couldn't solve. He kept appearing in her life at critical moments, helping without being asked, then disappearing again. She didn't know what he wanted from her, if anything. Maybe he didn't want anything. Maybe he was just a decent man in a place where decency was rare. That night, after the boarders had gone to bed and the kitchen was clean, Emma sat in her small room and pulled out the letters from Thomas Brennan. She read through them one more time, seeing them now for what they were, carefully crafted lies designed to exploit loneliness. The man who'd written them had known exactly what to say. He'd promised partnership, respect, a life built on mutual effort. He'd understood that what Emma wanted wasn't romance or luxury, but purpose and dignity. The cruelest part was that the promises themselves weren't wrong. She did want those things, but the man who'd offered them had never existed. Emma took the letters to the kitchen stove, opened the firebox, and fed them one by one into the flames. She watched the paper curl and blacken, the ink disappearing into ash. When the last letter was gone, she felt lighter somehow, like she'd finally let go of something she'd been carrying for too long. The next morning, William Foster asked if she'd like to attend a town social on Saturday evening. "There's music and dancing," he said. "Nothing fancy, but it's nice to get out." Emma almost said no automatically. Then she thought about it. She'd been in Bannock for 2 months, had barely spoken to anyone outside the boarding house. Maybe it was time to actually live here, not just survive. "All right," she said. "I'd like that." William's face lit up. "Really? That's wonderful. I'll come by at 7? 7 is fine." Judith raised an eyebrow when Emma told her, but said nothing. Saturday arrived. Emma had one dress that was nicer than her work clothes, a deep blue cotton that brought out her eyes. She washed her hair, pinned it up carefully, and was ready when William knocked. The social was held in the town hall, a large room with rough-hewn beams and a plank floor. Someone had strung paper lanterns from the rafters. A fiddle player and a man with a guitar provided music. Maybe 40 people had turned out, families, couples, single men and women all mixing together. William introduced Emma to what felt like half the town. Names blurred together, but faces were friendly. Several women invited her to join their sewing circle. A few men asked her to dance. She said yes to the women and no to the men, except for William, who deserved at least one dance for bringing her. She was catching her breath near the refreshment table when she saw him. Logan Creed stood in the doorway, clearly just arrived. He'd cleaned up, shaved, changed into what must have been his best shirt, but he still looked out of place, like a wolf at a garden party. Their eyes met across the room. Logan nodded once, then turned to talk to a man Emma didn't recognize. "You know Logan Creed?" William asked, following her gaze. "A little. He helped me when I first arrived. He doesn't come to town much, keeps to himself mostly." William lowered his voice. His wife died in childbirth about 2 years back. Baby too. He hasn't been the same since, people say. Emma felt something cold settle in her stomach. Judith had mentioned Logan's wife, but not the baby. Not the full weight of what he'd lost. She watched him across the room, seeing him differently now. The hardness in his face, the way he held himself apart, that was grief. Unhealed and still raw. The music started up again. William asked her to dance. Emma let him lead her onto the floor, but her attention kept drifting back to Logan. He stood against the wall, nursing a cup of coffee, watching the crowd with those unreadable eyes. When the dance ended, Emma excused herself and walked over to him. "Mr. Creed?" "Miss Harris." He looked at her dress, her carefully pinned hair. "You clean up nice." "So do you." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Don't get many chances to practice." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Around them, people laughed and danced and talked, but it felt like they were in their own separate bubble. "I wanted to thank you," Emma said, "for what you did, paying my room and board." "You didn't have to." "No, I didn't." "Then why?" Logan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that she had to lean in to hear him. "Because when my wife was dying, a neighbor rode 20 miles to bring a doctor. The doctor couldn't save her, but that neighbor tried. He didn't owe us anything. He just saw someone who needed help and he helped." Logan looked at her directly. "I can't save everyone. Can't even save most people. But when I see someone who deserves a second chance, I figure the least I can do is make sure they get it." Emma's throat tightened. "I don't know if I deserve it." "That's not for you to decide. You're here. You're making something of yourself. That's enough." Before Emma could respond, William appeared at her elbow. "Emma, they're starting another set. Would you like to dance?" She glanced at Logan, who'd already turned his attention elsewhere, effectively dismissing her. "Yes," she told William. "I'd like that." She danced with William, and then with one of the miners from the boarding house, and then with the store clerk who'd helped her pick out thread the week before. She smiled and made conversation and pretended to be fully present. But part of her attention remained on Logan Creed, standing alone against the wall, surrounded by people but fundamentally isolated. A man who'd lost everything and was still trying to do right by strangers. She wanted to understand him, wanted to know what made him act when others looked away, what drove him to help her when he was clearly still drowning in his own grief. But understanding would require getting closer, and getting closer felt dangerous in ways Emma couldn't quite name. The social ended around 10. William walked her back to the boarding house, talking cheerfully about the evening. Emma listened with half her attention, made appropriate responses, and felt relieved when they reached the green door. "I had a wonderful time," William said. "Perhaps we could do it again?" "Perhaps," Emma said, non-committal. She went inside to find Judith waiting up, mending by lamplight. "Have fun?" Judith asked without looking up. "It was nice. William's a good man, steady. He'd make a decent husband." "I'm not looking for a husband." "You say that now." Judith bit off a thread. "But you're young and pretty. Men are going to come calling. Better to think about what you want before you end up with what someone else wants for you." Emma sat down across from her. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask. I might not answer." "Were you ever married?" Judith's hands stilled on her mending. "Once? Long time ago? He died in the war." "Did you ever think about marrying again?" "Thought about it. Decided against it." She resumed her stitching. "I liked my independence too much. Liked making my own decisions, running my own household. A husband would have complicated that." "Do you regret it?" "Some days. Most days, no." Judith looked at Emma directly. "Why are you asking?" "I don't know. Everything I thought I wanted, it turned out to be a lie. Now I don't know what's real and what's just another story I'm telling myself." "Then don't tell yourself any stories. Just live. Do the work in front of you. The rest will figure itself out." It was practical advice, typical of Judith. Emma took it to heart. The weeks passed. Summer came in full force, hot and dry. Emma worked, attended church socials, slowly built a life in Bannack. William courted her with patient persistence. She let him, not because she was interested, but because refusing would have required explanations she wasn't ready to give. Logan Creed appeared twice more, always briefly, always on his way to somewhere else. He checked in with Judith, nodded to Emma, and left. She began to think of him as a recurring character in a story she didn't fully understand, important somehow, but not part of her daily narrative. Then one August afternoon, everything changed. Emma was in the kitchen preparing supper when Judith came in, her face pale. "There's a man asking about you at the general store." Emma's hands froze on the knife she'd been using to chop vegetables. "What kind of man?" "Claims he's your husband. Says you ran off on him, and he's been searching for months." The room tilted. Emma gripped the counter to steady herself. "That's not possible. I've never been married. I know that, but he's convincing. Got a whole story about how you had a falling out, how he wants to make things right." Judith's voice was tight. "Emma, whoever this man is, he's dangerous. I can see it in him." "What does he look like?" 40, maybe? Well-dressed, speaks educated, but his eyes—" Judith shook her head. "Those are predator's eyes." Emma's mind raced. This was what Logan had warned her about. Someone had finally tracked her to Bannack, and now they'd come to collect what they'd paid for. "What do I do?" "First, you stay away from him. Don't go near the general store. Don't talk to him if he approaches. Second," Judith paused. "Second, we get word to Logan Creed." "Logan's ranch is 10 miles out," Emma said, her voice shaking. "By the time someone gets word to him, this man could—" "Could what? Drag you out of my house in broad daylight?" Judith's jaw set. "I'd like to see him try. But you're right. We need help now." She moved to the doorway and called out, "Mr. Peterson!" The miner appeared, still looking thin from his bout with influenza, but steady on his feet. "Yes, ma'am?" "Ride out to Logan Creed's place. Fast as you can. Tell him there's a man in town claiming to be Emma's husband, and we need him here." Peterson glanced at Emma, his face darkening with understanding. "I'll go now. Take my horse. He's faster." Peterson nodded and was gone. Emma heard the back door slam, then hoofbeats fading into the distance. "Now what?" Emma asked. "Now we wait, and you stay inside, away from the windows." Judith picked up the knife Emma had dropped. "Go to your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." Emma wanted to argue, to say she wasn't a child who needed hiding, but the fear crawling up her spine told her Judith was right. She went to her small room and turned the lock with trembling fingers. Through the window, she could see part of the street. People moved about their business, unaware that somewhere among them walked a man who'd come to claim her like property. Emma pulled the curtain closed and sat on her bed, trying to steady her breathing. The minutes crawled past. She heard the boarders returning for supper, Judith's voice calm and normal as she served the meal. The ordinary sounds of the household continued while Emma sat frozen, listening for footsteps, for a knock, for anything that would signal the danger had found her. An hour passed. Then another. The sun sank lower, painting her room in shades of orange and shadow. A knock on her door made her jump. "Emma, it's me," Judith's voice. Emma unlocked the door. Judith slipped inside and closed it behind her. "He came here, about 30 minutes ago." Emma's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "He knocked on the door, polite as you please. Said he was looking for his wife, Emma Harris. Described you perfectly. Height, hair color, age, even mentioned that blue dress you wore to the social." Judith's mouth was tight. "I told him I had no border by that name. He didn't believe me. Pushed his way into the parlor, looked around like he owned the place." "What did you do?" "I fetched the shotgun from behind the door and told him he had 10 seconds to get out of my house before I put a hole in him." A grim smile crossed Judith's face. "He left. But Emma, he's not done. He knows you're here. He's just figuring out his next move." "I should leave. Go somewhere else. Keep running. Running's what got you here in the first place. No, we stand and fight." Judith gripped Emma's shoulder. "You're not alone in this. You've got me, you've got Peterson and the other boarders, and Logan Creed is coming. That man wants you. He's going to have to go through all of us." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "Why are you doing this? You barely know me." "Because my sister sent you to me, and that means something. Because I've seen what happens to women out here when they got no one to stand for them. And because you've earned your place in this house." Judith's grip tightened. "You're not some helpless thing anymore, Emma. You've worked hard, proved yourself. I'll be damned if I let some predator take that away from you." The words settled over Emma like armor. She straightened her spine, wiped her eyes. "What do we do?" "We wait for Logan. In the meantime, you stay in here. I've told the boarders what's happening. They're keeping watch." Judith left. Emma sat back down on her bed, but this time she wasn't just waiting passively. She was preparing. Her mind worked through possibilities, escape routes, worst-case scenarios. She might not be able to fight a grown man, but she wasn't helpless either. There was a window. There was the back door through the kitchen. There were neighbors who knew her now, who might help. Night fell. Emma dozed fitfully, jerking awake at every sound. She heard the boarders going to bed one by one, heard Judith moving around downstairs, keeping her own vigil. Sometime past midnight, hoofbeats thundered up to the house. Emma was at her window instantly, peering through a gap in the curtain. Logan Creed dismounted in the moonlight, moving with urgent purpose. He pounded on the door. Judith answered, and they spoke in low, tense voices Emma couldn't make out. Then Logan's voice rose. "Where is she?" A moment later, footsteps on the stairs. A knock on her door. "Emma, it's Logan. Let me in." She unlocked the door. Logan filled the doorway, dust-covered and breathing hard from the ride. His eyes swept over her, checking for injury. "You all right?" "Yes, I'm fine." Judith kept him away. "Good." He stepped into the small room, making it feel even smaller. "Tell me everything. What did this man look like? What exactly did he say?" Emma repeated what Judith had told her. Logan's jaw tightened with each detail. "That's Marcus Devlin," he said when she finished. "I know of him. Runs a trafficking operation out of Helena. Buys and sells women to mining camps, brothels, anywhere there's a demand." He looked at her directly. "He paid for you, Emma. Paid the man using the name Thomas Brennan to deliver you to Silver Ridge. When you didn't show up where you were supposed to, he started looking." Emma felt sick. "How did he find me?" You've been here 4 months. You've made friends, gone to socials, become part of the community. Someone talked, probably without meaning to. Word travels. Logan's expression was grim. The question now is what we do about it. I'll leave. Tonight. I'll go somewhere else. Change my name again. He'll just follow you. Men like Devlin don't give up. They can't afford to. If word got out that a woman escaped him, it'd be bad for business. Logan paused. There's another option. What? You marry me. The words hung in the air between them. Emma stared at him, certain she'd misheard. What? You marry me, tonight. We get the minister out of bed, make it legal. Logan's voice was matter of fact, like he was discussing livestock. A married woman, that's different. Devlin can claim you're his wife all he wants, but if there's a legal document saying you're mine, he's got no grounds. And if he tries to take you anyway, he's stealing another man's property. That's a hanging offense. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Logan, you don't even know me. This is insane. Yeah, it is. But it's also the only way I can think of to keep you safe. He met her eyes. I'm not asking you to be a real wife. This would be legal protection, nothing more. You'd keep your own room, your own life. I'd expect nothing from you except that you don't run off and get yourself killed. Emma's mind reeled. Marriage. To a man she'd spoken to maybe a dozen times. A man still mourning his dead wife and child. Why would you do this? She asked. What do you get out of it? Logan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low and rough. I couldn't save my wife, couldn't save my son, but I can save you. And maybe that means something. Maybe that's enough. Emma felt tears sting her eyes again. This wasn't about her at all. This was about Logan's grief, his need to make meaning out of loss. That's not a good reason to marry someone. No, it's not. But it's the reason we've got. He stepped back toward the door. Think about it. You've got until morning. If you say yes, we do it first thing. If you say no, I'll help you run. I'll give you money, supplies, get you somewhere far from here. But Emma, if you run, you'll be running the rest of your life. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Emma sat on her bed, her whole world upended again. 4 months ago, she'd stepped off a train expecting to marry a man she'd never met. Now she was being offered marriage by a different stranger for entirely different reasons. The irony wasn't lost on her. She thought about running, thought about changing her name again, finding another town, starting over somewhere no one knew her. She could do it. She'd proven she could survive, but Logan was right. She'd be running forever. Always looking over her shoulder, always wondering when someone would recognize her, when the past would catch up again. Or she could marry Logan Creed, accept his protection in exchange for what? He'd said he expected nothing, but no one gave something for nothing. There had to be a catch, some price she wasn't seeing yet. Emma pulled out the small mirror from her trunk and looked at herself. 4 months in Bannock had changed her. Her face was thinner, her skin darker from the sun. Her hands were rough and capable. The frightened girl who'd stepped off the train in Silver Ridge was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who'd learned to survive. That woman could make this choice, could accept a practical arrangement with clear terms, use it to build something stable, something real. Emma made her decision. She found Logan downstairs with Judith, both of them drinking coffee at the kitchen table. They looked up when she entered. I'll do it, Emma said. I'll marry you. Logan nodded once, as if he'd expected nothing else. I'll get the minister. He was gone before Emma could change her mind. She sat down heavily at the table. Judith poured her coffee without comment. You're sure about this? Judith asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. Fair enough? Judith studied her over the rim of her cup. Logan's a good man. Damaged, but good. He'll keep his word about this being a protection arrangement. But Emma, you need to understand something. People in town, they won't see it that way. They'll see a marriage. They'll have expectations. I know. Do you? Because once you do this, there's no going back. You'll be Logan Creed's wife in the eyes of everyone here. That's going to change how they treat you, how they see you. Emma thought about that, about being someone's wife instead of just Emma Harris, the widow who worked at Judith's boarding house, about being attached to a man, defined by that connection. It should have bothered her more than it did. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, she said quietly. Being tied to someone, having someone who's obligated to stand for you. I've been alone my whole life, Judith. Maybe it's time to try something different. Even if it's not real? What's real anyway? I thought Thomas Brennan was real. I thought those letters meant something. Emma wrapped her hands around the warm cup. At least with Logan, I know exactly what I'm getting. A name, protection, nothing more. That's more honest than most marriages. Judith made a sound that might have been agreement or disapproval. Before she could say more, Logan returned with a sleepy, irritated minister in tow. Reverend Patterson was a small man with wire-rimmed glasses and a permanently worried expression. He looked at the assembled group with confusion. "Mr. Creed, it's 2 in the morning. This couldn't wait until a decent hour?" "No, it couldn't." Logan turned to Emma. "This is Emma Harris. We're getting married. Now. Tonight." Patterson blinked. "I don't understand the urgency." "You don't need to understand it. You just need to perform the ceremony." The minister looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Logan's face stopped him. He sighed and pulled out a worn prayer book from his coat pocket. "Very well, but I'll need witnesses." Judith stood. "I'll stand for Emma." Peterson appeared in the doorway, still dressed despite the late hour. "I'll stand for Logan." They gathered in Judith's parlor, this strange collection of people brought together by circumstance and necessity. The minister opened his book, cleared his throat, and began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here." "Skip to the important parts," Logan interrupted. "We don't need the whole sermon." Patterson's mouth thinned, but he flipped ahead in the book. "Do you, Logan Creed, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." "And do you, Emma Harris, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Emma looked at Logan. He stood rigid, his face unreadable. This wasn't what he'd wanted when he woke up this morning. This wasn't what either of them wanted, but it was what they needed. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." Patterson closed his book with a snap. "I suppose you'll want a marriage certificate." "Yes, write it up now." While the minister scratched out the certificate with obvious disapproval, Emma stood next to Logan and tried to process what she'd just done. She was married, to a man she barely knew. It felt surreal, like something happening to someone else. Logan took the certificate when it was done and handed the minister a few bills. "Thank you, Reverend. We appreciate your discretion." "I'm a minister, Mr. Creed, not a gossip." But his tone suggested he'd be talking about this come Sunday. Peterson showed him out. The moment the door closed, the tension in the room ratcheted up. "Now what?" Emma asked. "Now we wait for Devlin to make his move." Logan folded the marriage certificate carefully and tucked it in his pocket. "He'll hear about this by morning, won't be happy about it." "Will it stop him?" "Depends on how determined he is. But it changes the game. He can't just take you now. He'd have to challenge the marriage, and that means going through the courts. Men like Devlin don't like that kind of attention." Judith stood. "Well, married or not, it's the middle of the night, and we all need sleep. Emma, you're still in your room. Logan, you can take the spare room upstairs." "I'll keep watch down here," Logan said. "You'll do no such thing. You rode 10 miles in the dark, and you look dead on your feet. Peterson and I will take turns watching. You sleep." For a moment, Emma thought Logan would argue. Then he nodded, too tired to fight. They went upstairs together, an awkward, newly married couple who'd sleep in separate rooms. At her door, Logan paused. "Emma." "Yes?" "Thank you for trusting me with this." "You're the one doing me a favor." "No, we're helping each other." He reached out like he might touch her arm, then thought better of it. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be hard." He was right about that. Emma woke to find the house already buzzing with activity. Judith was in the kitchen making breakfast while Peterson stood guard at the front window. Logan sat at the table cleaning his rifle, his movements methodical and calm. "Morning," he said when Emma appeared. "Morning." She felt strange, like the world had tilted overnight. "Has anything—" "Not yet, but it will." Emma helped Judith with breakfast. The other boarders came down one by one, their eyes moving between Emma and Logan with barely concealed curiosity. News of the middle-of-the-night wedding had clearly spread through the house. William Foster looked particularly stricken. He sat down across from Emma, his expression pained. "Is it true? You married Logan Creed?" "Yes, but I thought—" He stopped himself. "Never mind what I thought. Congratulations." The hurt in his voice made Emma wince. She'd never encouraged William, had never promised him anything, but he'd hoped anyway, and now that hope was crushed. "I'm sorry, William." "Don't be. You made your choice." He stood without eating and left the table. Logan watched him go. The school teacher? He had ideas. Most men do. Logan pushed his plate away. "You should pack your things. We're leaving after breakfast." Emma set down her fork. "Leaving? You can't stay here. Devlin knows where you are. We need to get you somewhere safer." "Where?" "My ranch. It's defendable, isolated. If Devlin wants to come after you, he'll have to come to me." Emma looked at Judith, who nodded. "He's right. You're not safe in town." "But my work—" "Can wait," Judith said firmly. "Emma, Logan's giving you protection. Take it." An hour later, Emma's few possessions were packed and tied to Logan's horse. She stood on the porch of the boarding house, saying goodbye to the place that had been her home for 4 months. "Thank you," she told Judith, "for everything." "You're welcome. Now get going before Devlin shows up and makes things complicated." Logan helped Emma mount her horse, the same mare she'd ridden from Silver Ridge. They rode out of Bannack heading north, leaving behind the small community Emma had worked so hard to join. The ride to Logan's ranch took 3 hours. They traveled in silence, climbing into higher country where the air was thinner and the pines grew thick. Emma had time to think, to really absorb what she'd done. She was married. She was leaving Bannack. She was going to live on a ranch with a man she'd married for legal protection and nothing more. It was terrifying and oddly liberating at the same time. Logan's ranch appeared around a bend in the trail. It was smaller than Emma had expected. A sturdy log cabin, a barn, a few outbuildings, fences marked off pastures where cattle grazed. It looked isolated, hard-won, and surprisingly well-maintained. "This is it," Logan said, dismounting. "Not much, but it's mine." Emma slid off her horse and looked around. Mountains rose on 3 sides, creating a natural barrier. The only approach was the trail they'd just come up. "It's defensible," she said. "That's the idea." Logan led the horses to the barn. "Come on, I'll show you the house." The cabin's interior was sparse but clean. One large room served as kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall. 2 doors led off the main room, one to a bedroom, one to what looked like a storage room. "That's my room," Logan said, pointing to the bedroom. "You can have it. I'll sleep out here. I'm not taking your bed." "Yes, you are. This is your house now, too. You need privacy." He set her bag down near the bedroom door. "There's a creek about 50 yards that way for water. Privy's behind the house. I've got chickens for eggs, a garden that needs tending, and cattle that need checking. You know how to shoot?" Emma blinked at the abrupt change of subject. "No. I'll teach you. Out here, you need to know how to defend yourself." Logan moved to a cabinet and pulled out a shotgun. "This is simpler than a rifle. I'll show you the basics." They spent the next hour in the clearing behind the cabin. Logan demonstrated how to load the shotgun, how to aim, how to absorb the recoil. Emma's first shot nearly knocked her on her back. "Brace yourself better," Logan said, repositioning her. His hands were matter-of-fact, impersonal. "Try again." By the 10th shot, Emma was hitting the target, an old bucket Logan had set up on a fence post. Not well, but hitting it. "Good enough for now," Logan said. "You'll practice every day until you can do it without thinking." They returned to the cabin. Emma looked around the small space that was now supposedly her home. "Logan, we need to talk about how this is going to work." "You're right." He poured them both coffee from the pot on the stove. "Ground rules. You keep the bedroom, I sleep in here. We both work the ranch. There's more than enough for 2 people. I'll teach you what you need to know. We take meals together, split the chores, and otherwise give each other space. When we're in town, we act like a married couple. Out here, we're just 2 people sharing a house. Clear?" "Clear." "And if Devlin comes, then we deal with it. Together." Logan looked at her steadily. "Emma, I know this isn't what you wanted, isn't what either of us wanted. But we're in it now. We make the best of it." "Make the best of it," Emma repeated. It seemed to be the story of her life lately. The first week on the ranch was brutal. Emma learned to milk the cow, collect eggs, weed the garden, mend fence, and a dozen other tasks she'd never imagined doing. Her hands, which had finally toughened up from boarding house work, blistered all over again. She fell into bed each night too exhausted to think. Logan was a patient teacher, but an exacting one. He showed her something once, expected her to remember it, and had little tolerance for mistakes. When Emma accidentally left the gate open and the chickens got into the garden, he didn't yell, just looked at her with disappointment that felt worse than anger. "Those were our winter vegetables," he said. "I'm sorry, I forgot to check the latch." Sorry doesn't replant the crops. He walked away, leaving Emma to salvage what she could from the chicken-ravaged garden. But he also showed flashes of unexpected kindness. When Emma cut her hand on a barbed wire fence, Logan cleaned and bandaged it with gentle efficiency. When she struggled to get the milk cow to cooperate, he stood behind her and guided her hands, showing her the rhythm. Like this. Firm but gentle. She'll let down if you don't spook her. Emma felt the warmth of his body behind her, smelled sweat and leather and wood smoke. For a moment, she was intensely aware of him as a man, not just a convenient solution to a problem. Then he stepped away, and the moment passed. They developed a routine. Wake before dawn, do morning chores, eat breakfast, work until midday, eat again, work until evening, eat supper, sleep. The days were long and hard, but Emma found a strange satisfaction in it. The work had tangible results. The chickens laid eggs, the garden grew despite the chicken incident, the cattle stayed healthy. She was building something real. 2 weeks after their marriage, Logan rode into town for supplies. Emma stayed behind, grateful for the solitude. She worked in the garden, pulling weeds and checking the plants for pests. The sun beat down on her back. Sweat dripped into her eyes. She didn't hear the rider approach until he spoke. "Well, well, the runaway bride." Emma spun around. A man sat on a horse at the edge of the clearing. He was exactly as Judith had described. Well-dressed, educated-looking, with dead eyes that catalogued her like merchandise. Marcus Devlin. Emma dropped the weeds and ran for the cabin. She made it to the porch before Devlin dismounted and followed at a leisurely pace. "Don't be rude, Emma. We should talk." Emma grabbed the shotgun from where Logan kept it by the door. Her hand shook as she raised it, pointing it at Devlin's chest. "Stay back!" Devlin stopped, but he didn't look worried. "You know how to use that?" "Well enough to put a hole in you." "Maybe, but then you'd hang for murdering an innocent man who just came to collect his wife." "I'm not your wife. I'm married to Logan Creed. I've got the certificate to prove it." "A certificate obtained under duress. A marriage that isn't consummated." Devlin smiled. "Do you really think a piece of paper is going to stop me?" Emma's arms were starting to ache from holding the shotgun. "It stops you legally." "Legally," Devlin laughed. "Emma, we're in Montana territory. The law is whatever the man with the most guns says it is. And I've got men. Lots of them." He took a step closer. "Put the gun down and come with me quietly. I'll make this easy on you." "No." "No?" Another step. "You don't have a choice. I paid good money for you. You're my property." "I'm not property. I'm a person." "Not out here, you're not. Out here, you're whatever I say you are." Devlin's voice hardened. "Last chance. Come with me or I'll take you by force." Emma's finger found the trigger. "I said stay back." Devlin lunged. Emma pulled the trigger. The shotgun roared, the recoil slamming into her shoulder. Devlin yelped and stumbled back, blood blooming on his left arm. "You shot me," he said, sounding genuinely surprised. Emma pumped the shotgun, chambering another shell. Her hands were steady now, the fear burned away by adrenaline and rage. "I'll do it again, and this time I won't aim for your arm." Devlin clutched his wounded arm, his face twisted with fury. "You're going to regret that." "Maybe. But you're going to regret coming here more." Hoofbeats thundered up the trail. Logan appeared, taking in the scene in an instant. Emma with the shotgun, Devlin bleeding, the tension crackling in the air. He dismounted in one smooth motion and moved to stand beside Emma. His hand went to the pistol at his hip. "Devlin, I was wondering when you'd show up. Creed, your wife just shot me." "Good. Saves me the trouble." Logan's voice was cold. "You're on my land. You're threatening my wife. That gives me legal right to put you in the ground. You want to test that?" Devlin looked between them, calculating. He was outnumbered and injured, but Emma could see he wasn't done. "This isn't over," he said. "Yeah, it is." Logan drew his pistol, a casual movement that nevertheless carried absolute menace. You've got 10 seconds to get on that horse and ride out. If I ever see you near my wife again, I'll kill you. That clear enough?" Devlin mounted awkwardly, favoring his injured arm. "You can't protect her forever, Creed." "Don't need forever, just need long enough." Logan aimed the pistol. 10, 9, 8. Devlin spurred his horse and rode off. They watched until he disappeared down the trail. Logan holstered his pistol and turned to Emma. "You all right?" Emma lowered the shotgun, her arms trembling now that the danger had passed. "I shot him." "You did?" Logan took the shotgun from her gently. "You did good. Held him off until I got back." "I was terrified. Fear's natural. What matters is you didn't let it stop you." He checked the shotgun, making sure it was safe, then set it inside the cabin. "Come on, you need to sit down." Emma's legs gave out and she sank onto the porch step. Logan sat beside her, close but not touching. "He said this isn't over," Emma said. "He's right. It's not." Logan stared at the trail where Devlin had disappeared. "He'll come back, probably with help. We need to be ready." "How do we get ready for that?" "We prepare. We practice. We make sure you can defend yourself if he catches you alone again." Logan looked at her. "Emma, I need you to understand something. This is real now. You shot a man today. That's going to have consequences." "I know." "Do you? Because there's no going back from this. You're in it, same as me. We stand together or we fall together." Emma thought about that. About being truly tied to someone, not just legally, but in shared danger, shared purpose. "Together then," she said. Logan nodded and stood, offering her his hand. Emma took it and let him pull her to her feet. They went inside together, and for the first time since this arrangement began, it felt like maybe they actually were partners. The sun was setting when Logan spoke again. "Tomorrow, we go to town. File a report with the sheriff about Devlin threatening you. Get it on record." He poured them both coffee. "And Emma? What you did today, standing up to him, that took real courage. Don't forget that." Emma wrapped her hands around the warm cup, feeling the ache in her shoulder where the shotgun had kicked, the trembling in her legs that still hadn't fully stopped. She'd shot a man, changed her life again, committed herself to this path in a way that marriage certificates and legal protections never could. She thought about this girl who'd stepped off the train in Silver Ridge, full of hope and stupid trust. That girl was gone completely now. In her place was someone harder, someone capable of violence when necessary. Emma wasn't sure if that was progress or loss. Maybe it was both. The ride into Bannock the next morning felt different. Emma sat straighter in the saddle, more confident after weeks of practice. Her shoulder still ached from the shotgun's recoil, a reminder of what she'd done, what she was capable of doing. Logan rode beside her, rifle across his saddle, his eyes constantly scanning the trail. They didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say that hadn't already been said the night before, over coffee and the shared understanding that their lives had shifted into something more complicated than a simple protection arrangement. Bannock appeared in the valley below, and Emma felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. She'd left this place as someone running from danger. She was returning as someone who'd faced it and survived. The sheriff's office sat on Main Street between the land office and a saloon. Logan tied their horses and held the door open for Emma. Inside, Sheriff Porter looked up from his desk, his weathered face registering surprise. "Logan Creed, heard you got yourself married." His eyes moved to Emma. "Mrs. Creed, I presume." "Yes." Emma stepped forward. "We need to file a report." Porter leaned back in his chair. "About?" "Marcus Devlin," Logan said. "He came to my ranch yesterday, threatened my wife. She shot him." The sheriff's eyebrows climbed. "She shot Marcus Devlin." "In the arm," Emma clarified. "He was trespassing. He told me he'd paid for me, that I was his property, and when I refused to go with him, he tried to take me by force." Porter pulled out a piece of paper and picked up a pencil. "Start from the beginning." Emma told the story, leaving nothing out. The letters from Thomas Brennan, the scheme to traffic her west, Logan's warning, the hasty marriage, Devlin's appearance at the ranch. Porter wrote it all down, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. "You got proof of any of this?" he asked when she finished. Logan pulled out their marriage certificate. "This proves she's my wife, legal and proper." "And Devlin's claim?" "He's got nothing," Emma said. "No marriage certificate, no legal document, just his word that he paid some con man to deliver me like livestock." Porter tapped his pencil on the desk. Here's my problem. Marcus Devlin's got connections. Money. Friends in Helena who don't ask too many questions. I file this report, it's going to bring trouble. Then bring trouble, Logan said. Because if you don't file it and something happens to Emma, you'll answer for it. The sheriff and Logan stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Porter sighed and went back to his paperwork. I'll file it. But Creed, you understand what you're getting into? Devlin doesn't forget, doesn't forgive. He's going to come at you one way or another. Let him come. Porter finished writing and pushed the report across his desk. Sign here, both of you. Emma signed her new name for the first time. Emma Creed. The letters looked strange, like they belonged to someone else. They left the sheriff's office and walked down Main Street. People stared. Emma heard whispers, saw curtains twitching in windows. News of the shooting had clearly spread. Let them look, Logan said quietly. Better they know what happened. Makes it harder for Devlin to spin his own story. They stopped at the general store for supplies. The owner, a thin man named Garrett, packed their order with nervous efficiency. Heard about your trouble, he said to Emma. That true? You shot Marcus Devlin? It's true. Well, Garrett looked at her with something like respect. Takes guts to stand up to a man like that. Most women would have just gone along. I'm not most women. No, ma'am, I can see that. They loaded the supplies onto their horses. Emma was untying her mare when Judith appeared, moving fast despite her age. Emma, I heard what happened. She looked Emma over like checking for damage. You all right? I'm fine. Fine, Judith snorted. You shot a man and you're fine, sure you are. She turned to Logan. You taking care of her? Best I can. See that you do. Judith softened slightly. Emma, you need anything, you send word. Don't care that you're married now, you're still one of mine. Something warm bloomed in Emma's chest. Thank you. William Foster emerged from the school building across the street. He saw them and hesitated, clearly torn between coming over and walking away. Finally, he crossed the street. Emma, Logan. He nodded to both of them. I heard about Devlin. I wanted to say... He stopped, struggling with the words. I'm glad you're safe. Thank you, William. If there's anything I can do, anything at all. He looked at Logan. I know I'm just a school teacher, but I can handle a rifle if it comes to that. Logan studied him for a moment. Appreciate the offer. I'll keep it in mind. William nodded and walked away. His shoulders set in a way that suggested the offer had cost him something. Emma watched him go, feeling the weight of might-have-beens. In another life, maybe she could have cared for someone like William, someone gentle and educated and safe. But that life wasn't hers. This one was. They rode back to the ranch in silence. Emma kept thinking about the way people had looked at her in town. Not with pity or concern, but with a kind of cautious respect. She'd become someone who mattered, someone with a story worth telling. She wasn't sure how she felt about that. The days that followed fell into a new pattern. Logan taught Emma to shoot properly, not just the panic defense she'd managed with Devlin. They practiced every morning, the crack of gunfire echoing off the mountains. Emma's shoulder bruised from the repeated recoil, but her aim improved. By the end of the first week, she could hit a target at 50 yards more often than not. Good, Logan said after a particularly successful session. Now we work on speed. They also worked the ranch together. Emma learned to read the cattle, to spot illness or injury before it became serious. She learned which plants in the garden needed more water, which needed less. She learned to anticipate what Logan needed before he asked, and he did the same for her. It was a kind of partnership she'd never experienced before. Not romantic, not emotional, but built on shared work and mutual dependence. They moved around each other with increasing ease, their separate orbits finding a common rhythm. But at night, they still retreated to separate spaces. Logan to his bedroll by the fire, Emma to the bedroom. The door between them remained closed. One evening, 2 weeks after the confrontation with Devlin, Emma was preparing supper when Logan came in from checking the cattle. His face was grim. We've got a problem. Emma set down the knife she'd been using. What kind of problem? Found 3 head dead in the north pasture. Poisoned, looks like. Someone put something in the water trough. Emma's stomach dropped. Devlin. Most likely. Or someone he paid. Logan moved to the window, looking out at the darkening landscape. It's a warning. He's telling us he can get to us anytime he wants. What do we do? We don't panic. We don't run. Logan turned back to her. We dig in and we fight. Over the next few days, they fortified the ranch. Logan showed Emma how to barricade the doors and windows, where to position herself if someone attacked the house, how to reload the shotgun in the dark. They moved supplies into the cabin, extra ammunition, food that would keep, water in case the well was compromised. Emma watched their small home transform into a fortress and felt the last remnants of her old life slip away. The girl from Boston who'd worked in a textile mill felt like a character from a story someone had told her once. This was her reality now, loading shotgun shells, checking sight lines, preparing for violence. The attack came on a Tuesday, just before dawn. Emma woke to Logan's hand on her shoulder, his voice low and urgent. Someone's outside. Get up. Quietly. She was out of bed instantly, reaching for the shotgun she now kept beside her. Logan was already at the window, rifle in hand. How many? Emma whispered. At least 3, maybe more. He glanced at her. You remember what we practiced? Yes. Good. Cover the back. Anyone tries to come through, you shoot first and ask questions later. Emma moved to the back window, her heart hammering. Outside, the sky was just beginning to lighten. She could see shapes moving in the trees, too far away to identify but close enough to be a threat. A voice called out from the darkness. Creed, send out the woman and we'll leave peaceful. Logan didn't respond. He sighted down his rifle, tracking movement. I said send her out. The voice was angry now. She belongs to Mr. Devlin. He just wants what's his. She's not his, Logan called back. She's my wife. Legal and proper. You're trespassing on my land. Leave now or I start shooting. You're one man, Creed. We're 6. You can't win this. Maybe not, but I'll take at least 3 of you down before you get me. You want to be one of those 3? Silence. Emma could almost hear them calculating, weighing the money Devlin was paying against the risk of getting killed. Then gunfire erupted. Bullets slammed into the cabin walls. Emma ducked instinctively, her ears ringing from the noise. Logan returned fire, the rifle's crack deafening in the small space. Emma, back window! She spun around to see a man climbing through, already halfway inside. Emma raised the shotgun and pulled the trigger. The blast caught him in the chest and he fell backward with a scream. Emma pumped the shotgun, chambering another shell, her hand steady despite the terror flooding through her. Another man appeared at the window. She fired again. He dropped. Good, Logan shouted. Keep them off that side. The attack lasted maybe 5 minutes, though it felt like hours. Logan picked off 2 more men trying to approach from the front. Emma held the back, firing whenever movement appeared. The cabin filled with gun smoke, acrid and choking. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Emma's ears rang in the silence. She kept her shotgun trained on the window, waiting for another attack. They're pulling back, Logan said. He was bleeding from a cut on his cheek where a bullet had grazed him. You hurt? No, I'm fine. Emma's voice didn't sound like her own. Are they gone? For now. Logan moved to the door, rifle ready. Stay here. I'm going to check. Logan, don't... But he was already outside. Emma watched through the front window as he moved from cover to cover, checking the bodies of the men who'd fallen. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline draining away and leaving her hollow. She'd killed 2 men, maybe 3. Shot them without hesitation, without mercy. Logan returned, his face grim. 4 dead. 2 wounded, but gone. They won't be back today, but they'll regroup. Emma set down the shotgun carefully. I killed them. You defended yourself. Defended our home. Logan checked the cut on his face in the mirror, wiping away blood. Emma, look at me. She met his eyes. You did what you had to do. Those men came here to kill me and take you. They made their choice. You made yours. Don't apologize for surviving. I'm not apologizing. I'm just... Emma stopped, unsure what she was. I thought it would feel different, killing someone. How does it feel? Empty. Logan nodded. Yeah, it does. He moved to the stove, started building up the fire. We need to get those bodies off the property before they start drawing scavengers. Then we ride to town, report this to the sheriff. Will he do anything? Probably not. But it goes on record, establishes the pattern. Logan poured water into the coffee pot. Emma, this isn't over. You know that, right? Devlin sent these men. When they don't come back, he'll send more. So what do we do? We end it, one way or another. Logan looked at her directly. I'm going to Helena. Going to find Devlin and settle this permanent. Emma's stomach clenched. That's suicide. He'll have men everywhere. Maybe, but it's better than waiting here for him to pick us off one by one. Logan's jaw set. I won't live like this, Emma. Always looking over my shoulder, always waiting for the next attack. Better to take the fight to him. Then I'm coming with you. No. Yes. Emma moved to stand in front of him. You said we're partners. You said we stand together. So let me stand with you. This is different. This is... What? Dangerous? We just fought off 6 armed men. I killed 3 of them. Emma's voice was hard. Don't tell me I can't handle danger. I've been handling it since the day I stepped off that train. Logan stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, but you follow my lead. You do exactly what I say, when I say it. Agreed? Agreed. They spent the rest of the day dealing with the aftermath. Logan dragged the bodies into the woods, far enough from the cabin that they wouldn't cause immediate problems. Emma cleaned blood from the floor, boarded up the shot-out windows, tried to restore some order to their violated home. That evening, they rode to Bannock together. Sheriff Porter looked unsurprised when they reported the attack. 6 men, you said? 4 dead, 2 wounded and fled, Logan confirmed. All of them armed, all of them trespassing with clear intent to harm. Porter wrote it down. You know who sent them? Marcus Devlin. Who else? Can you prove it? No, but we both know it was him. Logan leaned forward. Sheriff, this is going to keep happening until someone stops it. Are you going to do something or do I handle it myself? What are you planning, Creed? Going to Helena. Going to have a conversation with Devlin about leaving my wife alone. Porter's eyes narrowed. That sounds like a threat. It's a statement of intent. There's a difference. Not in the eyes of the law. The sheriff set down his pencil. Logan, I understand your position. I do. But if you go to Helena and kill Marcus Devlin, that's murder. I'll have to arrest you, no matter what he's done, no matter what he's planning. You understand that? I understand. Do you? Because you've got a wife now. She needs you alive, not swinging from a rope. Logan stood. I appreciate your concern, Sheriff. But this ends one way or another. Better it ends on my terms. They left before Porter could respond. Outside, night had fallen completely. Bannock's streets were quieter than Emma remembered. Most people already home for the evening. You're really going to do this? Emma said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Even if it means hanging. Logan looked at her in the lamplight spilling from a nearby window. Emma, I've been dead inside for 2 years. Going through motions, working the ranch, existing but not living. You know what changed that? What? You. Helping you, protecting you. It gave me something to care about again. Something worth fighting for. He touched her arm briefly, a rare gesture. I won't let Devlin take that away, whatever it costs. Emma felt something shift in her chest. Some wall she'd built crumbling. Logan wasn't doing this just for her safety. He was doing it because she'd given him a reason to live again, and he was willing to die to protect that. When do we leave? She asked quietly. Tomorrow. We'll need supplies, ammunition, and Emma... He paused. We need to talk about what happens if this goes wrong. What do you mean? If I die, the ranch goes to you. It's already in my will. You'll have enough to sell it and go somewhere safe, start over if you want. I don't want the ranch. I want... Emma stopped, surprised by her own words. What do you want? She looked at him, this hard, damaged man who'd saved her multiple times without asking for anything in return. Who'd married her to protect her. Who was planning to risk everything to keep her safe. I want you to come back alive, she said simply. Something in Logan's expression softened. I'll do my best. They returned to the ranch and spent the evening preparing. Logan cleaned and checked their weapons. Emma packed supplies, food and water and ammunition. They moved around each other with practiced efficiency, but there was a new tension in the air, an awareness of what tomorrow might bring. When the preparations were complete, they sat by the fire with coffee, neither wanting to sleep yet. "Tell me about your wife," Emma said. "Your real wife." Logan was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice low. "Her name was Sarah. We grew up in the same town back in Missouri. Got married when we were 19, both of us too young and too stupid to know better." A faint smile crossed his face. "She was stubborn, opinionated. Hated Montana when we first got here, complained about the cold and the isolation, but she made the ranch a home. Planted that garden, fixed up the cabin, made curtains for the windows." "What happened?" "She got pregnant. We were both excited, scared. Out here, medical care is—" He stopped. "The baby came early. Breech. Sarah bled, and there was nothing I could do. Rode like hell to get the doctor, but by the time we got back, they were both gone." Emma set down her cup and moved to sit beside him. "I'm sorry." "Not your fault." "I know, but I'm still sorry." She paused. "Do you still love her?" "Yes, I'll always love her. But Emma, loving someone who's gone, that's different from loving someone who's here. Sarah's dead. You're alive. That matters." Emma absorbed that. "Is that why you helped me? Because I reminded you of her?" "No, you're nothing like Sarah. She was loud and brash and never met a fight she wouldn't pick." Logan looked at Emma directly. "You're quiet, careful. You think before you act. You survived things that would have broken most people. That's what drew me to help you, not because you reminded me of the past, but because you deserved a future." Something warm and dangerous bloomed in Emma's chest. She'd spent months thinking of this marriage as a practical arrangement, a legal protection, and nothing more. But sitting here by the fire, hearing Logan talk about her like she mattered, like she was worth fighting for, it felt like more. "Logan, I know what you're going to say." He cut her off gently. "And we can't. Not yet. Not until this is finished and we know we're safe." "Why not?" "Because I won't make you a widow twice. Once is bad enough." He stood, putting distance between them. "Get some sleep. We ride at dawn." Emma wanted to argue, to push back against his logic. But he was right. Tomorrow they were riding into danger that might get one or both of them killed. Starting something now, when the future was so uncertain, would only make it hurt worse if things went wrong. She went to her room and lay awake, listening to Logan moving around the cabin, banking the fire, checking the locks one more time. Eventually, his sound stilled. Emma stared at the dark ceiling and let herself imagine a different future. One where Devlin was dealt with, where the threat was gone, where she and Logan could figure out what they actually were to each other beyond legal convenience. It felt dangerous to hope for that, but she hoped anyway. Dawn came cold and clear. They ate a quick breakfast, saddled the horses, and loaded their supplies. Emma strapped the shotgun to her saddle, checked her ammunition, and tried not to think about what they were riding toward. Logan secured the cabin, making sure everything was locked and protected. Then he stood on the porch for a moment, looking at the ranch he'd built with his own hands. "You think we'll come back?" Emma asked. "I don't know. But if we don't, at least we tried." He mounted his horse. "Ready?" "No, but I'm going anyway." They rode out as the sun broke over the mountains, heading south toward Helena. The journey would take 3 days, maybe 4. 3 days to plan, to prepare, to figure out how to confront a dangerous man in his own territory. Emma had no idea if they'd survive it, but she knew, with absolute certainty, that she'd rather die fighting beside Logan than live the rest of her life running and hiding. The first day's ride was quiet. They pushed hard, covering as much ground as possible before making camp. Logan chose a spot off the main trail, defensible and hidden. They built a small fire, ate a cold supper, and took turns keeping watch. On the second day, they passed other travelers, prospectors heading north, a family in a wagon going west, a mail carrier who eyed them with curiosity but didn't ask questions. Logan kept Emma's face turned away whenever someone approached, protecting her identity. "If word gets back to Devlin that we're coming, he'll be ready," Logan explained. "Better if we have the element of surprise." That night, camped in a grove of aspen trees, Emma asked the question that had been gnawing at her. "What's the plan? When we get to Helena?" "Find Devlin, talk to him." "Just talk?" "Depends on how the conversation goes." Logan poked at the fire. "I'm hoping he'll be reasonable. Realize it's not worth the trouble to keep coming after you. Back off and find easier prey. And if he's not reasonable? Logan's silence was answer enough. Emma pulled her blanket tighter. You're planning to kill him. I'm planning to do whatever's necessary to keep you safe. That's the same thing. Maybe. But Emma, men like Devlin, they don't stop. They don't give up. The only language they understand is force. He looked at her across the fire. I know you don't like it. I know it goes against everything decent people are supposed to believe. But out here, decency gets you killed. Emma thought about the men she'd shot defending the ranch, about how easy it had been to pull the trigger, how little she'd hesitated. Logan was right. She'd already crossed that line. The only question was how much further she was willing to go. If it comes to it, she said slowly, if you have to kill him, I'll help. Logan's eyebrows rose. Emma, I mean it. This is my fight as much as yours. More, even. Devlin's after me. You're just caught in the middle. She met his eyes. So if it comes to violence, I'll do my part. I won't make you carry all of it. You've already carried plenty. Then I can carry more. They stared at each other across the fire, and Emma saw respect in Logan's eyes. Not pity, not protection, but genuine respect for who she'd become. All right, he said finally. Partners. Partners. The third day brought them within sight of Helena. The territorial capital sprawled across a valley, bigger and busier than anything Emma had seen since leaving Boston. Streets gridironed in all directions. Buildings rose 2 and 3 stories high. The noise of commerce and civilization filled the air. They stopped on a ridge overlooking the city. Devlin operates out of a hotel on Wallace Street, Logan said. The Mercer House. Expensive place, respectable front. Behind it, he runs his operation, trafficking women, selling them to mining camps and brothels across the territory. How do you know all this? Asked around after you first told me about him. Called in some favors from people who owe me. Logan's jaw tightened. He's got protection, Emma. Local law looks the other way because he pays them to. We go in there making accusations, we'll be the ones arrested. So what do? We make him an offer he can't refuse. Money, maybe. Or a threat big enough that it's not worth his while to keep pursuing you. Logan urged his horse forward. Come on, let's find a place to stay, plan this out properly. They found a boarding house on the edge of town, paid for a week, and spent the rest of the day gathering information. Logan visited saloons and gambling halls, talking to men who knew Devlin's operation. Emma stayed at the boarding house, cleaning weapons and trying not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Logan returned after dark, his face troubled. It's worse than I thought. Devlin's got at least a dozen men working for him. He never goes anywhere without guards. And he's been bragging about the woman who escaped him, how he's going to make an example of her. Emma's blood ran cold. An example. Yeah, he's angry, Emma. The attack on the ranch didn't work. You're still free, and it's making him look weak. He's desperate to get you back. Not because of the money anymore, but because his reputation depends on it. So he won't negotiate. Probably not. Logan sat down heavily. I've been thinking. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we should go back, sell the ranch, take the money and go somewhere far from here. California, maybe. Or Oregon. Emma shook her head. Running won't work. You said it yourself. Men like Devlin don't give up. He'll find me eventually, no matter where I go. Then what do you want to do? Emma looked at the weapons laid out on the bed. The shotgun she'd learned to shoot. The pistol Logan had given her to practice with. The knife he'd taught her to use as a last resort. I want to end this, she said. Whatever it takes. Logan studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. Tomorrow, we go to the Mercer House. We confront Devlin directly. But Emma, I need you to promise me something. What? If this goes bad, if it looks like we're not going to make it out, you run. You don't try to save me. You don't stay and fight. You run, and you keep running until you're somewhere safe. Promise me. Emma wanted to refuse, wanted to say she'd never leave him, but she saw the desperate need in his eyes, the fear that she'd throw her life away for his. I promise. It was a lie, and they both knew it, but Logan seemed to take comfort in it anyway. They spent the evening planning, going over every possible scenario. What they'd say to Devlin, how they'd position themselves, what their escape routes were. By the time they finished, Emma's head ached and her stomach was tied in knots. Get some sleep, Logan said. Tomorrow's going to be hard. But neither of them slept much. Emma lay awake listening to Logan move around the room, checking and rechecking their weapons, pacing like a caged animal. She understood the feeling. Tomorrow they'd walk into the den of the man who'd tried to buy her, sell her, destroy her. And one way or another, it would end. She thought about Boston, about the girl she'd been. That girl had believed in letters and promises, in the idea that life could be simple if you just worked hard and hoped for the best. She'd been naive and trusting and desperately, painfully alone. This woman, the one who'd emerge tomorrow regardless of what happened, was none of those things. She'd learned that survival required hardness, that safety was something you fought for, not something you were given. She'd killed men, married a stranger, built a life from nothing, and was now prepared to defend it with violence. It wasn't the life she'd imagined, but it was hers, and she'd be damned if she let Marcus Devlin take it away. Morning came too soon. Emma dressed carefully, choosing her simplest dress, nothing that would restrict movement. She braided her hair tight and pinned it up. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The soft features from Boston had sharpened into something harder. Her eyes held a kind of steel that hadn't been there 6 months ago. Logan was already awake, checking their weapons one final time. He looked up when she emerged from behind the dressing screen. "You ready for this?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." He handed her the small pistol they'd practiced with. "Keep this on you, hidden, but where you can reach it quick." Emma tucked it into the pocket she'd sewn into her skirt for exactly this purpose. The weight felt reassuring. They ate a silent breakfast at the boarding house, neither tasting the food. The other guests chatted around them, oblivious to the violence being planned over eggs and coffee. Emma wondered if this was what soldiers felt like before battle, this strange disconnect between the ordinary world and the terrible thing about to happen. The walk to the Mercer house took 15 minutes. Helena was already busy with morning commerce, people hurrying to work or market, completely unaware that among them walked two people prepared to kill or be killed before the day ended. The Mercer house rose 3 stories, brick and wood construction with fancy curtains in the windows and a doorman out front. Emma could see why Devlin operated from here. It screamed respectability, the kind of place no one would suspect housed a trafficking operation. Logan paused half a block away. Last chance to walk away. "I'm not walking away." "Didn't think so." He took her hand briefly, squeezed it, then let go. "Remember the plan. I do the talking. You watch for threats. Anything feels wrong, you get out." They approached the front entrance. The doorman, a large man with a broken nose and the look of someone who'd done worse things than open doors, stepped in front of them. "Help you folks?" "We're here to see Marcus Devlin," Logan said. "Mr. Devlin ain't receiving visitors." "He'll see us." Logan's voice was flat, brooking no argument. "Tell him Logan Creed is here, and I brought his property." The doorman's eyes shifted to Emma, recognition sparking. "Wait here." He disappeared inside. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. No turning back now. The doorman returned. "3rd floor, room 302, but you gotta leave your weapons." "Not happening," Logan said. "Then you ain't going up." Logan's hand moved toward his pistol. The doorman tensed. For a moment, Emma thought it would end right here, in blood on the street. Then a voice called from inside. "Let them up, Davis. I want to hear what they have to say." The doorman stepped aside reluctantly. Logan and Emma entered the lobby, all polished wood and expensive carpet that muffled their footsteps. A grand staircase curved upward. They climbed in silence, Emma's hand near her hidden pistol, Logan's near his. 3rd floor, room 302. The door stood slightly ajar. Logan pushed it open fully. Devlin. The room was large and well-appointed, with windows overlooking the street. Marcus Devlin sat behind a mahogany desk, looking exactly as Judith had described. Well-dressed, educated, with those dead predator's eyes. 2 men flanked him, both armed. Devlin smiled when he saw Emma. "There she is, the woman who's caused me so much trouble." He gestured to chairs in front of his desk. "Please sit. Let's talk like civilized people." Logan remained standing. "We're not here to talk. We're here to end this." "End it? My dear Creed, it ends when I get what I paid for." Devlin's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That woman is mine. Purchased and paid for. The fact that you married her doesn't change the contract." "There is no contract," Emma said, finding her voice. You can't own a person. Can't I? Out here the law is flexible, and I have friends who ensure it stays that way. Devlin leaned back in his chair. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave her here. I'll forgive the debt of the men she killed, the trouble she's caused. You walk away, go back to your ranch, and forget this ever happened. And if I refuse? Logan asked. Then I have you arrested for trespassing, threatening a businessman, conspiracy to commit violence. You'll hang, and I'll take her anyway. Devlin's expression hardened. You can't win this, Creed. I own this town. The sheriff, the judge, half the territorial government. You're just a rancher with a hero complex. Emma watched Logan's jaw tighten. She knew what he was thinking, that Devlin was right, that they'd walked into a trap with no way out. But she also saw something else in his eyes, a kind of resignation, like he'd expected this all along. You're right, Logan said quietly. I can't win, but I can make sure you lose too. His hand moved toward his pistol. The two guards went for their weapons. Emma pulled her own gun from her pocket. Everything happened at once. Logan drew and fired, catching one guard in the chest. The man fell. The second guard got his gun up, but Emma shot him, her hand steadier than she expected. Devlin dove behind his desk. Run! Logan shouted at Emma. But she didn't run. She moved sideways, getting an angle on Devlin's hiding spot, her pistol trained and ready. Logan kicked over the desk, revealing Devlin scrabbling for a weapon. Don't, Logan said, his gun pointed at Devlin's head. Devlin froze, his hand inches from a pistol in his desk drawer. You're making a mistake. Kill me and you're a dead man. Maybe, but you'll be deader. Logan's finger tightened on the trigger. Wait! Emma's voice cut through the tension. Don't shoot him! Logan glanced at her, confused. Emma, if you kill him, they'll hang you. Everything he said is true. He owns this town. We need him alive. Devlin laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Listen to your wife, Creed. She's smarter than you. Emma ignored him, her mind working fast. We need proof. Evidence of what he's doing, the trafficking, the corruption. Something we can take to the territorial governor. The governor's in his pocket too, Devlin sneered. Maybe, but the federal marshals aren't. Emma moved closer, her gun steady. You keep records, don't you? Accounts, transactions, names of the men you pay off. That's how men like you operate. You keep insurance in case someone turns on you. Something flickered in Devlin's eyes. Fear. There, Emma pointed to a safe in the corner. Open it. Go to hell. Logan cocked his pistol. Open it, or I shoot you in the knee, then the other knee. Then we open it ourselves while you bleed. Devlin's face went pale. He crawled to the safe, his movements jerky with fear, and worked the combination. The door swung open to reveal stacks of papers, ledgers, cash. Emma grabbed the ledgers, flipping through pages of names and numbers. Her pulse quickened. This was it. Proof of every transaction, every bribe, every woman bought and sold. Names of sheriffs, judges, politicians. A complete map of Devlin's operation. This is enough, she said to Logan. This will destroy him. We still have to get out of Helena alive, Logan pointed out. True. Emma looked at Devlin, still on the floor by the safe. An idea formed, dangerous but possible. Stand up. Devlin stood, his hands raised. What are you planning? You're going to walk us out of here. Tell your men we came to an agreement, that everything's settled. You're going to smile and act like we're all friends. Emma pressed her pistol against his ribs, hidden under his jacket. One wrong word, and I pull this trigger. Understand? Devlin's jaw worked. You won't get away with this. Watch us. Emma nodded to Logan. Get the ledgers, all of them. Logan stuffed the ledgers into a bag he'd brought, moving fast. Footsteps pounded up the stairs, reinforcements responding to the gunshots. Tell them to back off, Emma hissed to Devlin. The door burst open. 4 armed men rushed in, guns drawn. They stopped when they saw the scene, Devlin standing with Emma's gun against his side, Logan with his weapon trained on the group, 2 dead guards on the floor. Mr. Devlin? One of the men asked. Devlin's face was white with rage, but he forced a smile. It's fine, we've reached an understanding. Mr. and Mrs. Creed are leaving. Let them pass. But, sir, I said let them pass. Devlin's voice cracked with strain. The men hesitated, then slowly lowered their weapons. Emma and Logan moved toward the door, keeping Devlin between them and the guards. They made it to the stairs. Emma's hand trembled slightly, but her gun never wavered. They descended slowly, Devlin in front, Emma right behind him with the pistol hidden but present, Logan covering their rear. The lobby was full of people now, drawn by the commotion. Emma saw the doorman, several hotel guests, staff members all staring. "Keep walking," Emma whispered to Devlin. "Smile. Act normal." Devlin walked through the lobby, Emma matching his pace. To anyone watching, they might have been three people having a civil conversation. Only someone looking closely would see the terror in Devlin's eyes, the way Emma's hand never left his side. They reached the street. Their horses were tied 2 blocks away. They'd never make it. Logan caught Emma's eye and jerked his head toward an alley. She understood. They needed to disappear, fast. "In there," Emma told Devlin. "Move." They ducked into the alley. The moment they were out of sight, Logan grabbed Devlin and slammed him against the wall. "You're going to give us a 5-minute head start," Logan said. "Then you can do whatever you want. But if you send men after us before we're out of town, I swear I'll come back and burn your whole operation to the ground." "You think 5 minutes will save you?" Devlin spat blood. "You think you can outrun me?" "Don't need to outrun you." Logan released him. "Just need to get these ledgers to the right people. After that, you won't have the resources to chase us." They left Devlin in the alley and ran. Emma hiked up her skirts, the ledgers clutched tight, her lungs burning. They reached the horses and mounted without bothering with proper saddle checks. "Ride hard," Logan said. "Don't stop for anything." They galloped through Helena's streets, drawing shouts and stares. Emma glanced back once and saw men pouring out of the Mercer house, Devlin among them, pointing and shouting orders. The chase was on. They made it to the edge of town before the first bullets started flying. Emma crouched low over her horse's neck, trusting the mare to keep running. Logan returned fire, his shots forcing their pursuers to take cover. Then they were out of Helena, thundering north toward open country. The pursuit continued but fell back gradually. Devlin's men were city thugs, not experienced riders. Logan and Emma had the advantage of desperation and better horses. They rode for hours, pushing the animals hard. Finally, when no pursuit was visible, Logan called a halt near a creek. The horses were lathered and heaving. Emma slid from her saddle and nearly collapsed, her legs like water. "Are they still following?" she gasped. Logan scanned the horizon. "Don't see anyone, but they'll come. Devlin won't give up that easy." "Then we keep moving." "Not yet. The horses need rest or they'll drop dead." Logan helped Emma to the creek. She drank deeply, the cold water clearing her head. They'd done it. They'd gotten the ledgers, escaped Helena, survived. But Emma knew this wasn't over. Devlin would send more men, better men. They needed to get the evidence to someone who could actually use it. "The Territorial Marshal's office is in Deer Lodge," Logan said, reading her thoughts. 3 days' ride if we push it." "Will they listen?" "They will when they see what's in those ledgers." Logan pulled out one of the books, flipping through pages. "This is every corrupt official in the territory, every payoff, every transaction. Even if half of them are in Devlin's pocket, the other half will jump at the chance to take him down." Emma looked at the ledgers, this collection of papers that represented so much suffering. So many women like her, bought and sold like livestock. Her hand tightened on the book. "We end this," she said. "Not just for me, for all of them." Logan nodded. "Then we keep moving." The 3 days to Deer Lodge were the hardest of Emma's life. They rode from dawn to dusk, stopping only when the horses demanded it. They slept in shifts, one always keeping watch. Twice they spotted riders in the distance and had to change course, losing hours. But they made it. Deer Lodge was smaller than Helena but more established, with actual law enforcement not completely corrupted by men like Devlin. The Territorial Marshal's office sat on Main Street, a solid brick building that radiated authority. Logan and Emma walked in, trail-worn and exhausted, carrying a bag full of ledgers that would upend the territory's power structure. Marshal James Thornton was a gray-haired man with sharp eyes and a skeptical expression. He looked up from his desk as they entered. "Help you folks?" "We have evidence," Logan said, dumping the ledgers on the desk. "Evidence of a trafficking operation run by Marcus Devlin out of Helena. Payoffs to sheriffs, judges, politicians, every detail documented." Thornton's skepticism shifted to interest. He opened a ledger, scanned a page, and his eyebrows rose. "Where did you get this?" From Devlin's safe. He's been operating for years, buying women and selling them to mining camps. My wife was one of his targets. We're here to make sure he pays for it." Thornton looked at Emma. "You were trafficked?" "Almost. I escaped before he could complete the sale. But there are others who weren't as lucky." Emma's voice was steady, despite the exhaustion weighing on her. "Those ledgers list everything. Every transaction, every victim he could account for, every official he corrupted. It's all there." The marshal spent an hour reviewing the ledgers, his expression growing grimmer with each page. Finally, he looked up. "This is enough to arrest half the territorial government. Do you understand what you've brought me?" "Yes," Logan said, "and we understand the danger. Devlin will do everything he can to stop this from getting out. He's probably already sending men here." "Let him send them." Thornton stood, gathering the ledgers. "I've been looking for a way to crack Devlin's operation for 2 years. This is it. You two just started a war." "We know," Emma said quietly. "But some wars need fighting." Thornton studied them for a moment. "You'll need to testify, both of you. Tell your stories, verify the evidence. It won't be easy or safe." "We'll do it," Emma and Logan said in unison. What followed was a whirlwind. Thornton moved fast, arresting corrupt officials before word could spread. Federal marshals were called in. Emma and Logan spent days giving testimony, reliving every detail of the trafficking scheme, the attacks, their desperate flight to Helena. It was exhausting and terrifying. Twice, attempts were made on their lives. Once by a sniper who missed, once by poison in their food that Emma caught before they ate it. They moved between safe houses, never staying in one place long enough to be found. But slowly, the case built. More victims came forward, encouraged by Emma's bravery. Women who'd been sold to mining camps, forced into brothels, too afraid to speak before, but finding courage in numbers. The evidence mounted until it was irrefutable. Marcus Devlin was arrested 3 weeks later in Helena. Emma heard the news from Marshal Thornton himself. "We got him," Thornton said. "Caught him trying to flee to Canada. He's in custody, awaiting trial." Emma felt something unclench in her chest, a tension she'd carried for so long she'd forgotten it was there. "Will he hang?" "If the jury does its job, yes. The evidence is overwhelming." Thornton paused. "You did this, Mrs. Creed. You and your husband. You took down one of the most dangerous men in the territory." Emma shook her head. "I just wanted to survive." "Sometimes survival requires courage most people don't have. You had it." The trial took place 2 months later in Helena, in a courtroom packed with spectators and guarded by federal marshals. Emma testified, telling the whole story from the letters that had lured her west to the confrontation in Devlin's office. She spoke clearly, without emotion, letting the facts speak for themselves. Devlin's lawyer tried to discredit her, to paint her as a scorned woman seeking revenge. But the ledgers told the truth. The other victims told the truth. And in the end, truth won. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Guilty on all counts: trafficking, corruption, conspiracy to commit murder. The judge sentenced him to hang. Emma sat in the courtroom as the sentence was read, Logan's hand in hers. She felt no triumph, no joy, just a deep, bone-weary relief that it was finally over. They stayed in Deer Lodge until the execution, wanting to see it finished completely. The day Devlin hanged, Emma and Logan stood in the crowd. Emma watched the man who'd tried to buy her, sell her, destroy her, drop through the trap door. She watched until his body stopped twitching. Then she turned to Logan. "Can we go home now?" "Yeah, we can go home." The ride back to the ranch took a week. They moved slowly, no longer running from anything. The Montana Territory spread around them, vast and indifferent, but Emma saw it differently now. Not as a harsh wilderness that would kill her, but as a place where she'd become someone stronger. The ranch looked exactly as they'd left it. The cabin stood solid, the fences held, the cattle grazed peacefully. Emma dismounted and stood looking at it all. This place she'd helped defend, worked to maintain, bled for. "Home," she said softly. Logan came to stand beside her. "Yeah, home." They spent the next few days settling back in, repairing damage from the attack, restoring order. The rhythm of ranch work was soothing after months of violence and fear. Emma found peace in simple things, collecting eggs, tending the garden, watching the sun set over the mountains. One evening, as they sat on the porch with coffee, Emma asked the question that had been building for weeks. What are we doing, Logan? What do you mean? This. She gestured between them. We got married for protection, to keep me safe from Devlin. But he's dead now, the threat's gone. So what are we? Logan was quiet for a long time. What do you want us to be? Emma considered that. 6 months ago, she would have said she wanted nothing, would have insisted on maintaining the practical arrangement, keeping emotional distance, protecting her heart. But that was before she'd fought beside him, before they'd risked their lives for each other, before she'd seen the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, not with pity or obligation, but with something that looked like real affection. I want us to be real, she said. Not a legal convenience, not a protection arrangement, a real marriage. Emma, I know you still love Sarah. I'm not asking you to forget her, but Logan, what we've been through, what we've built together, that means something. At least it does to me. Logan set down his coffee and turned to face her fully. It means something to me, too. More than I expected when I offered to marry you. He paused. I told myself I was doing it for Sarah to make up for not saving her. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about her and started being about you. When? I don't know exactly. Maybe when you shot Devlin the first time and didn't even flinch. Maybe when you insisted on coming to Helena with me. Or maybe it was earlier, watching you learn the ranch, seeing you become part of this place. He reached out and took her hand. You're not a replacement for Sarah, you're just you, and that's enough. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. So where does that leave us? Wherever we want to be. Logan stood, pulling her up with him. Emma Creed, will you marry me again? For real this time. Not because you need protection, but because we choose each other. Emma laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy. We're already married. I know, but I want to do it right. Make vows that mean something. Build something that's ours, not just a legal arrangement. His eyes were serious. If you'll have me. Yes, Emma said. Yes, I'll have you. Logan pulled her close and kissed her for the first time, and Emma felt something click into place. This was what she'd been searching for when she answered those letters from Thomas Brennan. Not romance or rescue, but partnership. Someone who saw her as an equal, who trusted her to stand beside him, who'd fought for her and let her fight for him. They got married again that Sunday, in the small church in Bannock, with half the town in attendance. Judith stood as Emma's witness again, tears in her eyes. Peterson stood for Logan, grinning like a fool. Even William Foster came, offering his congratulations with genuine warmth despite his own disappointment. This time, the vows meant something. This time, when Emma promised to stand by Logan through hardship and danger, she knew exactly what she was promising. And when Logan promised to cherish and protect her, she knew he meant as an equal, not a burden. The reception was held at Judith's boarding house, the same parlor where they'd first married in desperation now filled with celebration. Emma moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations, and felt a sense of belonging she'd never experienced before. These people knew her story, knew what she'd survived, what she'd done to survive, and they respected her for it. She wasn't just Logan Creed's wife or the woman who'd escaped trafficking. She was Emma, member of the community, someone who'd earned her place. Later that night, back at the ranch, Emma stood in the bedroom, their bedroom now, not just hers, and looked at the woman in the mirror. She'd changed so much from the frightened girl who'd stepped off the train in Silver Ridge. That girl had been soft, trusting, naive. This woman was harder, scarred by violence and betrayal, but also stronger. She'd learned that survival required strength she didn't know she had. That safety was something you created, not something you were given. That the person you became in the face of adversity was truer than the person you'd been when life was easy. Logan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You all right? Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how I got here. The lies that brought me west. The violence that kept me alive. The choices that led to this moment. Emma leaned back against him. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. Thought I'd made a mistake so terrible there was no coming back from it. And now? Now I think maybe the mistake was the best thing that ever happened to me. She turned in his arms. Not the trafficking scheme or Devlin or any of that, but being forced to become someone stronger, someone capable, someone who could build a real life instead of just surviving. Logan kissed her forehead. You would have found that strength eventually. Maybe. But out here, I had to find it fast or die. Emma smiled. The territory makes you hard. but it also makes you honest. There's no room for pretense when survival is at stake. They stood together in the quiet bedroom, two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and built something real from the wreckage. Outside, the Montana wind howled through the pines. Inside, the fire crackled, and for the first time in her life, Emma felt truly home. The years that followed were hard, as years in the Montana Territory always were. Winters were brutal, summers were short, and the work never ended. But Emma and Logan built something lasting. They expanded the ranch, adding more cattle, improving the land. Emma started a small business selling eggs and vegetables to the growing community. Logan took on occasional work helping neighbors with their herds, building a reputation as a fair and skilled rancher. They had children, 2 boys and a girl, each born in the cabin with Judith's help. Emma survived each birth, though it was close a few times. The children grew up wild and free, learning to ride before they could properly walk, helping with ranch work as soon as they were able. Emma taught them to shoot, to read, to think critically. She told them her story when they were old enough, wanting them to understand that life rarely went according to plan, but that didn't mean it couldn't be good. She taught them that strength came from facing hard things, that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but acting despite it. Logan taught them to work hard to keep their word, to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. He taught them that sometimes the right thing was also the hardest thing, and you did it anyway. The ranch became known as a safe place for women in trouble. Word spread somehow, maybe through Judith, maybe through the women Emma had helped by testifying against Devlin, that Emma Creed would help if she could. Women fleeing bad marriages showed up sometimes, or women who'd been trafficked and escaped. Emma gave them work, shelter, a chance to figure out their next move. Some moved on. Some stayed and became part of the community. Logan never complained about the extra mouths to feed or the risk of harboring runaways. He understood that Emma needed to pay forward the help she'd received, that saving others was how she made peace with her own survival. Bannock grew and then shrank as the gold played out. Some people left for new strikes, new territories. But Emma and Logan stayed. They'd put too much of themselves into this place to abandon it. Judith lived to be 83, sharp-tongued and capable until the very end. She died in her sleep one winter night, and Emma wept like she'd lost a mother, because in every way that mattered, she had. William Foster married a teacher from back east and had 4 children. He and Emma remained friends, their early awkwardness settling into genuine affection. He taught Emma's children when they were old enough for school, and she was grateful for his patience and kindness. Marcus Devlin's execution ended his trafficking network, but it didn't end trafficking in the territory. There were always men willing to exploit desperate women. But Emma's testimony and the public trial had changed things. Women were more willing to come forward. Law enforcement was more willing to investigate. It wasn't enough, would never be enough, but it was something. Emma and Logan grew old together, their love deepening with time. They fought sometimes, usually about money or how to handle the children or whether to sell off part of the herd. But they never stopped being partners, never stopped standing together against whatever came. On Emma's 50th birthday, Logan gave her a gift, the letters from Thomas Brennan, which he'd secretly saved from when she'd tried to burn them years ago. "Why did you keep these?" Emma asked, holding the yellowed pages. "Because they're part of your story, and your story matters." Logan took her hand. "Those letters were lies, but they brought you here, brought you to me, and I can't regret that, even knowing what you went through." Emma looked at the letters, these artifacts of her old life. The promises they'd contained had been false, but the hope they'd sparked, the belief that life could be different, better, built on partnership and honest work, that had been real. She'd just been looking in the wrong place for it. "Should I burn them now?" she asked. "That's up to you." Emma thought about it. Then she carefully folded the letters and put them in a box with other important documents: their marriage certificate, the deed to the ranch, letters from their children when they'd gone to school in Helena. "No," she said, "I'll keep them, as a reminder." Of what? That sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best. That getting what we want isn't as important as becoming who we need to be. Emma smiled. That girl who answered these letters, she was weak and desperate, but she was also brave enough to take a chance. And that bravery, misguided as it was, led to everything good in my life. Logan pulled her close. "You were never weak." "I was, But I got stronger. Emma rested her head on his shoulder. We both did. They sat together on their porch, watching the sun set over the mountains they'd called home for decades. The ranch spread around them, solid and real, built by their own hands. Their children were grown now, two of them running ranches of their own, one working as a federal marshal dedicated to stopping trafficking operations. Emma thought about the journey that had brought her here. The lies, the betrayal, the violence, the fear and desperation. The moments when survival seemed impossible, and then the slow, hard work of building something real. Learning to trust again, learning to fight, learning to love honestly instead of desperately. The Montana Territory had been brutal and unforgiving, but it had also given her the chance to become someone she could be proud of. Not someone perfect. She'd killed men, broken laws, done things that still haunted her sometimes in the dark. But someone strong, someone capable, someone who'd stood up for herself and others when it mattered most. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Thomas Brennan had been real? Emma asked. If you'd stepped off that train and he'd been there, exactly as promised? Logan considered. You'd probably be miserable. Men who write letters like that, making grand promises, they're usually running from something themselves. You'd have ended up with a fraud or a dreamer, either way, not someone you could build a real life with. So you think the lie was better than the truth would have been? I think you made the lie into something better. You took the worst situation and turned it into this. He gestured at the ranch, at the life they'd built. That's not luck. That's character. Emma smiled. Maybe he was right. Maybe the measure of a person wasn't what happened to them, but what they did with it. She'd been betrayed, hunted, nearly killed, but she'd survived. More than survived. She'd built a legacy. The ranch would pass to their children and through them to their grandchildren. Emma's story would be told, not as a cautionary tale about the dangers of trusting strangers, but as a testament to what was possible when you refused to give up. When you fought for yourself and others. When you turned pain into purpose. As darkness fell and stars emerged over the Montana mountains, Emma thought about all the women who'd passed through this ranch over the years. The ones she'd helped, sheltered, fed. Some had been trafficking victims like she had almost been. Others were escaping violence or poverty or hopelessness. Each one had a different story, but they all shared the same need, a chance to start over, to become someone new. Emma had given them that chance because someone had given it to her. Logan had seen past the desperate woman in need to the strong person she could become. Judith had taken her in when she had nothing. The people of Bannock had accepted her despite knowing her story. That was the real lesson of her life, Emma thought. Not that bad things happened, or that people lied, or that the world was dangerous. Those were truths everyone learned eventually. The real lesson was that survival required community, that strength came from standing together, that the person who saved your life might be a stranger, but they didn't have to stay one. I'm glad I answered those letters, Emma said quietly. Logan looked at her in surprise. Really? Really? Not because of what Thomas Brennan promised, but because if I hadn't, I'd still be in Boston, working in that mill, living in that boarding house, completely alone. Emma squeezed his hand. I'd rather have this life, with all its pain and danger, than that one. Even knowing what it cost you? Especially knowing what it cost me. Because the cost was worth it. Emma stood, pulling Logan up with her. Come on, it's getting cold. They went inside together, into the cabin they'd defended and repaired and lived in for decades. The fire was already laid. Their daughter had been by earlier, helping with chores even though Emma insisted she didn't need it. They were a family that took care of each other, a value Emma and Logan had instilled through example more than words. That night, lying in bed beside the man who'd saved her life and become her true partner, Emma felt a deep contentment. Her story hadn't gone the way she'd planned. It had been harder, more violent, more terrifying than anything she could have imagined, but it had also been real. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Not the promises people made or the lies they told, not the plans that fell apart or the dreams that died. What mattered was what you built from the ruins, who you became when everything went wrong, the life you carved out through sheer determination and the help of people who chose to stand with you. Emma had survived, more than survived. She'd built something lasting, a family, a home, a legacy. She'd taken a lie and turned it into truth. She'd taken betrayal and turned it into strength. The Montana Territory had tried to break her. Instead, it had forged her into someone unbreakable. And as she drifted off to sleep, Emma's last thought was one of gratitude. Not for the easy path she'd been denied, but for the hard one she'd walked. Because that path, brutal as it was, had led her exactly where she needed to be. Home.